If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Special thank you to Landmark Coffee Roasters, a sponsor for this podcast. If you haven't tasted their coffee, you got to go check it out. Some of the best beans in Southern California, landmarkroasters.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Lopez on the show. Rick, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You are a writer for TV shows here in LA. You ironically wrote for the big Netflix series Lucifer. You understand the nuts and bolts of everything film and TV, and you've lived all over the world and landed here in LA to impact the entertainment industry. You are one of the kindest people I know. You are, many don't know this, but you are a beast of a baker. You make some of the bombest treats on the planet, and you love the Lord. You're actively serving in our church at Legacy, in our men's study and Sunday mornings. And you're also helping me edit and prepare a book from the back end, which is a daily devotional commentary through every chapter of the Bible, 1,189 chapters. You are the editor.
Yeah.
And your humility and your joyful spirit go before you. Rick Lopez, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I need that introduction wherever I go now.
Yes.
Lay it out. The herald that announces me when I arrive.
Yes. I like that into restaurants, right?
Exactly, yeah.
We just make the announcement before you come in.
Yeah, table for two.
So, Rick, you are a writer here in the industry.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was, I don't know, when I was like real little, I just always loved killing stories, crafting stories. Like some of the earliest ones I remember is I would always like, my dad going to work, I would just like write something on like a napkin.
Yeah.
Just like, a couple stories and like, went from like one side of the napkin to the other side of the napkin to the other side. And so I had like all four sides, like telling a little story that he'd like read every single day at work and all that stuff. But yeah, the Lord just really, I don't know, impressed on my heart that storytelling and the active art of it. And it's, there's really not much more that I could do in life than it's just like creating story, laughing about story, talking with other people about story. It's just, it's an amazing part that you get paid for it too.
Yeah, exactly. No, you just said it. You said, what'd you say? I put words to a screen and people pay me for it sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes.
You've been in LA how long?
I moved out in like 2010. I guess I was in Orange County, and I finished up my last couple of years at college.
Okay.
And then I started actually working in the industry in like 2013 was my first year.
Got it.
So almost 10 years.
Wow. And so you broke into the industry, was it with a writing gig, or were you just doing behind the scenes stuff, trying to get in?
Yeah, the first year it was all like extra stuff that they had for like day player on set.
Yep.
So whenever they had like really big scenes they were shooting, I remember just being downtown and we had to like lock off certain areas for cars that were coming by. And so like when you're not filming, traffic goes through, and then you're filming, you had to like lock down and stuff. So I just had to make sure that like no one walked into frame while we were filming. So I was literally like downtown on like one of the bridges that we're overlooking, and so there's like stairs, and I just had to make sure that no one walked on the stairs. And we were there for like 16 hours just like baking in the sun. So
any major shows or films that you were standing on that like really stuck out to you?
The biggest one, I think it was called The Vatican Tapes.
Wow.
It was like a horror movie that Lionsgate was doing, and there's like a bus sequence where the bus was like driving, and then all of our lead actors were in the bus, and then like a bird is supposed to fly like into the window.
Yeah.
And then so they had to like set up this complicated sequence, and then they were adding the bird later through computer effects.
Yeah.
But then they had like a bird that like it was like a prop that they like put into it after it had crashed and everything, and then it's supposed to like flop around in the floor and everything. So we just heard all the shrieks and strills, but I'm just like standing over my stairs, making sure no one walks into frame. No one walked by the entire day, so I was like, success.
Yeah. And what do you do if somebody walks into frame? You like you throw your baton out, or like what do you do?
You're just like 5 minutes. Yeah, you're supposed to wait, until they say cut, and then they're like, all right, go ahead. But yeah.
Did you come out to here when you were young?
The first time I actually came to LA, we were living in Arizona at the time, and I think I was definitely in high school. I can't remember what year, but we just wanted to come out to LA to see like the beach and then go to, like Disney and do all that stuff. But it wasn't until like high school that I actually first like came out to here.
Got it. And then, but you've been a storyteller all of your life then. You said since you were little,
Oh, yeah.
You're writing on a napkin with your dad.
Yeah.
and this started to just brew in you when you were young.
Yeah, I was like, I remember like all my favorite stories that I would like read in books and all that stuff as go up. Like I always wanted to like write the next chapter of it because I was like, I love these characters. I don't want them to stop. So I was like, all right, so how do I like continue the Lord of the Rings? Because that story's done, but I want to keep following these characters. So I like figured out other stories that I wanted to tell and just like continuing characters and stories and journeys and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, any like major stories or books or movies that impacted you when you were really young? Like, you remember, like you saw it when you were young, like I'm gonna do that, or like any moments when you're super young that really impacted you, shaped you.
Oh yeah, the biggest for me is always like Jurassic Park. That's always like my go-to.
Wow, yeah.
I was like 7 years old, and I think I was watching. And I still remember like seeing my parents like rear projection TV and everything. I'm just watching there, and I was like looking at this. And I just remember finishing that movie, and I'm like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
I was watching this, and like I want to do that. It's like still, and it's still like the movie still holds up to this day when you see like this big animatronic T-Rex,
Yes.
and then the early days of like using computer effects and everything to supplement, and that movie still holds up today. It's amazing.
No, that the scene where the long necks like show up, right? It's like,
I know, you're just like boom, boom, and then
and all of a sudden you're like,
John Williams soundtrack.
oh my God, remember he looks up and he like,
because Ellie's like looking through the paper, and then you see like the hand just kind of like hit her and then turn her face, and you just like see this jaw dropping moment, and you're like, what are they looking at? What are they looking at? And you build the entire suspense until you finally see it. And
yes,
that entire sequence, movie's amazing.
So that captured you as a young person, and that started the writing in you.
Yeah, I mean, that really started it. And then I remember just like when I was really little, like watching the cartoons, like Batman the Animated Series probably has like one of the biggest effects on me because I watched that like every single day. Like I always knew I had to have
like 4 PM or something right after school. What do you remember? When was that?
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4. I remember being in South Dakota. It's like I had to get all my schoolwork done and everything done because at 3 o'clock it's on and I have to watch it every single day. And then it's like it's an amazing because it's like a complete kids show. You can watch it, but there's like so many layers, like the pathos and ethos of like the character that you get into of Batman. I still think it's like probably the best depiction of like a Batman character that they've ever done. But just watching it, and then I love it now that it's like on Max and all these streaming services, I can go back and watch it. But yeah, it just captures me every single time I watch it. I'm like, wow, it's amazing. And then just the animation style too, because most animation they do on like white paper, and then they'll draw it and everything on. But this is the first one where they actually created everything on black paper, and then would add white lines and everything to create it. So it had a completely different look and feel to it as well. So it was like an amazing animation.
Did you know that as a kid, or you discovered that later, or like, are you in animation?
I'm working on a couple animation things right now, but it wasn't until much later that I figured out why it looks so different and everything. Because if you just look at the style of it, it just like stands out from anything that they were making at the time. And then you go back and like, well, how'd they do that and all that kind of stuff.
Well, how many different styles are there animation? Is there like hundreds, or is it like 10?
Now I think there's only like a couple because so much of it is computer. But before it was like 2-dimensional, so everything was like either drawn on screens, or back then it was like paper.
Right.
And then I don't know, I think in like the early 2000s or so, they went to like 3-dimensional. So that's where everything kind of had like computer graphics, and it kind of, it wasn't just all drawn on like a flat surface.
Got it.
But now they kind of have something that's like a 2D, 3D hybrid.
Okay.
Which where everything is like kind of on the background is like flat, but then the characters are a little bit more. So it's like they call it like a 2D hybrid. That's kind of like the standard that they use for a lot of animation and anime and everything now. But Japan is always like at the forefront of like pushing with the absolute style and everything that they can do. And they can make some really, really amazing stuff.
I think top most impactful cartoons on your life, like top 5 as a child.
Let's see.
You said Batman.
Yeah, but like Batman the Animated Series and like all the ones that ran with that, because like Superman came out right after that.
Yeah.
And then it was like Justice League, and then Justice League Unlimited, and then like the Spider-Man cartoon. Like that one was like, because it was amazing. Like later I actually found out that they like just took the actual comic book storylines and then just adapted them like they did the X-Men comics and everything to the cartoons. So they're pretty faithful adaptations, and they kind of copied the art style and everything. So they all kind of look a little bit different. But it's also really interesting going back and seeing Spider-Man is that they had like rules for like kids animation that you couldn't actually show people punching each other. And so that was like,
I couldn't show that.
yeah, you couldn't show that. And so Spider-Man, like you go back and watch it and you realize, oh yeah, he never punched a single person, no bad guys or anything. He's like had to tie him up with webs and everything.
Wow.
But you never notice it as a kid. It's just like, oh, Spider-Man just has to figure out how he's going to fight the lizard with just like his webs or, or something going on. So I don't know. I always feel like sometimes restrictions can always make like things more creative. Kind of like when you go back to like the old style of Hollywood, and they had like the Hollywood Code and all that stuff. And there was like so many stipulations that they put on films. But then you have some like the most creative films coming out of this time because everyone has to like, all right, so here's our sandbox. How do we tell an amazing story with characters we care about in this sandbox? So you get like.
I totally agree with you. The Hays Code was like some of the best movies back then because they were restricted, and once that was over, everything got just nasty and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, you had to kind of change the subtlety of it. Like you had to actually tell a story with all these different elements instead of just being like, let's just show it on screen and then we get it.
What is the Hays Code?
Yeah, it was basically this big time in Hollywood when all of the country and everything was seeing like the undue influence of like film, and everything was kind of like really pushing the envelope, and everything started to get a little bit more murky on.
When was this?
The code probably started in like the late 30s or 40s, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it was a long time.
Went through through the 50s, and then
it was like 20 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all like black and white films back then. But then you get It Happened One Night is probably one of my favorite romantic comedies that came out during this time. And yeah, Dave knows. And it's amazing because you couldn't show there's like no like physical displays of romance, so you couldn't even have like hand holding. There's no kissing. There's nothing that you can show for like a romantic comedy, and the movie still holds up today. And it's
Wait, what is it?
It Happened One Night.
It Happened One Night.
Yeah, and it's like these two people who meet on a bus, and like one's like kind of this suave debonair guy, and then this other girl's like a rich girl running away from like her problems.
Yeah,
and it's how like they fall in love over this journey of like trying to get across the country, and it's all just subtext. It's all dialogue, which I think that's my biggest fan. It's like you see these two people like slowly falling in love and the tension, but there's absolutely no like actual physical intimacy whatsoever, and so it all just has to be played by like emotions and actors and everything. So
yeah, no, you got to get extremely creative to pull that off.
Yeah. And then like Casablanca, which is probably my favorite movie of all time, happens during this era, and it's just complete just like subtlety, and again like the dialogue and the joking, and you're taking this super like heavy subject matter of like World War II, and like the world's kind of like on this edge, and then there's this one guy who's like trying to run away from everything, and then like the woman that he loves like comes back into his life, and then like that throws his whole life out of balance, and then she's married now, and so he can't be with her, but he still loves her, but he's trying to push her away, and then through this entire journey he ends up like sacrificing everything for like a good cause at the end. So he doesn't get the girl, which is like the the number one problem with every love story. It's like they have to end up happy together. No one wants to walk out of the theater being like, they didn't end up together. What was the point?
Right.
This movie still solves it.
Crazy, man. So these are obviously, I mean, we got TV shows and we got some films out of you already that have really impacted and shaped. But I love that you pointed out you're into the creative part of this. You really want to figure out that creative space in which, in those contexts there were limits, and it forced you to figure out kind of new pieces to the puzzle and break beyond barriers that limit you through imagination, through writing, through stacking words. The power of words, the power of detail. And I don't know, it's fascinating, Rick, because it's like, watching a kid, I mean, you're telling us your story, but growing up watching you try to figure this out and piece this together, and you're just enjoying TV shows and you're enjoying film. And, but God is obviously doing something in you. He's stirring something in you. And, you fast forward decades and now you're a writer in LA, it's pretty crazy. But it's really amazing to see how God starts to shape us and our gifts, talents, and abilities as a child. Were your parents influential and really, I don't know, pouring gasoline on the fire and encouraging you to write, or how did this build out?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still like kind of have to give I think most of the credit to kind of where I got to to my mom on that part, because I definitely love storytelling, I love doing all that, but then get off to like high school and all that stuff, and you're like, I gotta go to college, like Hollywood's not real, like you can't make a career, there's no like, what do you do? I don't know anyone out here, I can't do anything, right? And so I just went into I was like, I'll just do business, that's a safe one, everyone needs business and all that stuff. And so I did like my first semester, I got good grades, I did the macro microeconomics, all that supply side, all that stuff, and it just like there's no joy there. Like I could fill it out and do all that. And so my mom eventually just kind of sat me down and is like, you only have one life. Like just take the shot. Go for it. Like if you don't get it, then that's the door closed, and you're not supposed to do that. But if you do, you'll never regret going back on something that you absolutely love. And so then like that summer, I like actually I wrote like an entire feature film script, submitted that into film school, and then waited, got into film school.
Wow, how old are you? This
was because I did like 2 years of community college to get all my undergrad done. So this is like in 2009.
Got it.
So yeah, I submitted in 2009, and then 2010 I started film school out here.
Got it.
So yeah, that was like my mom like pushed me off the cliff, and then I was like, I don't know if she still loves it now that I'm like so far away, but
Yeah. Did you you still have the script?
I have the saved file. I don't think I have it printed anymore, but yeah. It's always like when you go back and look at your early stuff that you worked on, you're like, oh yeah.
No, totally.
Yeah. There's some good ideas in here. There's some good
Yeah. You're like, what was I doing?
Yeah, exactly.
I go back, listen to
Your mom is awesome that she like pushed you to do that. I love that.
Oh, 100%. No, exactly.
cool.
Every single time, like, yeah, thank the Lord for like great parents. And that's always like the first miracle I feel like everyone has in their life is like, how many times does like your dad and your mom, out of all the people in the entire world, just happen to meet at one place at the one time and fall in love, and then eventually like you come from that, and if you just go back from like generations of parents, like the odds of probabilities for each of those happening is just a miracle in itself. So
Right. The storyline.
yeah.
How they meet, how they come together. They have a child.
Yeah.
And they influence this child. These gifts come forth, and then
Yeah. And they stay married.
they stay married. Praise God.
Second miracle. Yeah.
No, you've told me, Rick. Your family's awesome, huh? I mean, your parents are awesome.
I, don't want to prop them up too much. But they're pretty great.
Yeah. But they loved you well and have supported you well.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like a good mom and a good dad.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's,
no one else on the planet can be that for us, right? We need a good mom and a good dad.
No, definitely. I mean, even like, in the church where we've been, there's always been, spiritual parents and spiritual grandparents and all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's really nothing like having, at least my parents. Like, I don't know how my life could have even ended up without like great parents, especially because like, growing up in the military and everything, that we moved around so much, and my dad was gone a lot in the early part of my life. So it was really me and my mom who were there doing a lot of fun stuff together, but she always found a way to make it like an event or something when my dad was gone. Yeah. And so it was like, we'll have all the food that like dad doesn't like to eat during this time. That Ben and Jerry's ice cream, we'll have that when dad's not. So yeah, she always found ways to make it very fun and do stuff. And then it was really cool when we actually lived in England. My mom was homeschooling me then, and I was teaching, and so we got to like, it's like, all right, we're gonna go drive over to like Plymouth, where they, all the pilgrims departed from, and then we're just gonna read about like, pilgrims while we're doing that. So you get like the entire history, and you go there and walk these streets that have been there for like just thousands of years. Right. Go seeing these castles and like, oh yeah, the Tudors that we were reading about and all that stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, this is where they lived, and you can see these just giant stone halls and everything they have, and then you see like the Roman bath when the Romans occupied Europe and everything in England, and yeah, it was really cool.
So your dad is in the military?
Yeah, Air Force. So
Air Force, and is he high ranking position, or is he? Can you neither confirm nor deny his position?
No, he was he was enlisted, so he wasn't an officer at all. But I think he got up to like E5, E6, and so he was a senior non-commissioned officer by the end. But yeah, then definitely he did like his 23, 24 years, and then by then he was like, I'm ready to be done.
He's not like, is he flying UFOs or like stealth bombers or something, or like?
Nope. I was like, that's
neither confirm nor deny that.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. Whenever
these are where all your stories come from.
Well, that is my biggest. Is my dad's probably the biggest storyteller of them all.
Really?
Yeah, because my dad's like a complete like jokester. He was always like the class clown, and he will tell any story just to like get a laugh out of you and stuff.
Yeah.
So like reading books and stuff as a kid, he would just randomly insert stuff like that, and so instead of the hungry caterpillars, like the hungry caterpillar wanted McDonald's one time, and so everything he went to was he wanted French fries, he wanted a Burger King Whopper, and then you're like, Dad, McDonald's doesn't have Burger King. He's like, well, this caterpillar, he wanted to go to the McDonald's that had the Burger King Whopper. So
that's so cool, because my dad was like that too. It's very similar. And he taught you how to be creative.
Wow. Because Dave's a film guy too.
Yeah,
it's super fun.
A USC film guy, and you watch Dave and Rick go off talking film and TV, and it's a blast.
Yeah, we can deep dive.
Talk for hours, right? Yeah.
It's fun. But yeah, so my dad had a lot of storytelling in it, and then definitely as I got older, just kind of learning all these things and get to experience like different cultures and time periods. And then, especially like growing up over in like England during this time, and like we were able to like go to Italy for 3 weeks and just like go through the entire coast and like seeing all these different cultures and regions, and you kind of getting, experience all this stuff. It's like really young, kind of really helped shape this kind of desire to just kind of tell more stories and learn. And I've always been like a very curious person. Like if I find something, like I just want to go like know everything about it. So I just research and deep dive. And it's just like more fun is like, the archaeologists like excavating all these things out of the time in history.
And so military family growing up, traveling the world, running around because your dad's in the Air Force. And so you're stationed at different places. And you're homeschooling along the way.
Yeah.
Mom's training you along the way. Was that difficult? Was the schooling difficult?
I don't know. It wasn't like difficult. I mean, I didn't know any other way because, it's actually funny. My mom was in the army as well because like her family, like her dad was in the army and her brother was in the army and all that stuff. So there's a long line. And so my mom was in the army and she's actually the only one in the family that shot like expert marksmanship when she went in there. So yeah, it was like, don't mess with mom.
So,
Wow.
But once she...
there's a script idea there. There's something. We got something there.
Oh, I know. They already did G.I. Jane, so... But and once my mom, she did like her initial 4 years and then got out and then eventually married my dad and everything. But yeah, my mom definitely, like she was working until she had me. And then she was like, I don't want to work anymore. I just want to, stay home and like raise me. But I know I was the perfect easy son. And if you ask my brother, he's the favorite. But I mean, we all know that like the oldest is like always the favorite. But definitely having like a mom that was like always there as like a teacher. And then as a mom, like she found a really good way to like structure it. That was like, we knew how to like go to class and teach and learn. But, there wasn't like the actual, get up at like 8 a.m. and you have to like catch the bus and go here and do all that. So she found ways to like really make it fun. And especially, when we lived in England, got to travel and go to see all these places while we're still infusing it together. That, yeah, it's like big props to mom to make all that work. And even to this day, I don't know exactly how she did it because I was like, my dad was gone a lot. It was just mom. She had to, take care of all of like me and then take care of the house and then do all that stuff. And then, yeah, also deal with like dad being gone. And that's like a whole different thing. So
right.
It's a lot of the hidden sacrifices you don't always see from your parents till you're like much older.
Totally. Yeah. Not easy growing up military family. Some of the benefits, obviously being able to travel the world and see different places.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, moving from place to place, not easy and not easy on the family.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. Your parents, held it together and, fought through and kept pushing and kept pouring into you, and giving opportunity.
Yeah. And it was definitely like definitely the influence of the Lord completely because like both my parents were kind of like my dad was definitely like raised in the church. My mom, like her grandma would take her to church, but I don't think my parents were really like committed to following the Lord until it was really like right when they had me. My dad went into the military and then they got stationed over in South Dakota. And that's when my parents were like, all right, we really got to like, we got to figure out our life now. We have like in charge of another life, and they really got plugged into a church. And then we had like great pastors there that really taught them, and educated them. So luckily, like my entire life, I've just known the Lord. I never had any times where I didn't. But yeah, it was like that was another like miracle in my life. It was like my parents stayed together, and then definitely like found the Lord, and then like raised me in the church and all that stuff. So
And this is in South Dakota, you said?
yeah, so very flat South Dakota. It was Ellsworth Air Force Base. So they had all the big B-1 bombers were there. So you could always hear them leaving the flight lines and stuff every morning.
Got it.
It was a fun wake-up call.
And then, and how many years did you stay in South Dakota?
We were there 5 years.
Okay. And then ended up moving to Arizona after that?
From there, we went to England.
England.
Yeah. So.
And then I think Aaron was mentioning earlier, did you do some Germany too or something like that?
Yeah, we went over to Germany several times because my dad, he ended up getting he slipped his disc in his back. And then I think he's had like 5 surgeries on it by now, but it kept on, as soon as you like slip one disc, then like it puts pressure on like the one above it and beneath it. And so they have like the big military hospital for pretty much all of like Europe and Africa and Asia is in Germany.
Wow.
This big Air Force base. And so he would always have to go over there for like surgeries. And at first it was, they were doing like these huge like needle shots to go in there and try to repair the disc with like shots and everything. And like I was little and the needles looked this big, so I don't know how big they actually were, but I was like, that doesn't go in a human body.
Right. Yeah, that looks like it goes all the way through you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So yeah, we went over Germany several times, and yeah, it was like we did a day trip to like Belgium, and then we were down in Italy, and then we went to Paris a couple times. And I know we lived in England for 5 years, and I still don't feel like we got to see everything. Yeah.
So how much of your life was spent overseas?
We were just there 5 years.
Okay.
So yeah, it was like I was there from like 7 to 12. So it's probably like my biggest. Like, I have some memories of like South Dakota. Like there's some people there in the church and like some of the family and stuff that we had made there. But it's definitely like that's when I really start remembering like everything is once I'm there. So that's probably like the most impactful part of my childhood.
Got it. And then transitioning back into the States in your teenage years?
Yeah, because we came back when I was 12 from England. And so yeah, coming back from
Did you have an accent?
no accent there. You know, I could like mimic one, but I didn't have one naturally.
Got it.
So yeah, it was like coming back from there, and then we went from like rainy, luscious, wet England to middle of Tucson, Arizona desert. So that was a little bit of a surprise.
Right.
Yeah.
Hot and everything, huh?
Very hot. Yeah, I mean, it was like so hot during the day because it, get up in like the high teens, like 120 or so. That literally
Right.
you'd walk on. If you walked on the asphalt, it would melt at the top layer, and so you get it on your shoes. So whenever you go into a house, you always just like take off your shoes because otherwise you'd track like shoe prints. And once that stuff dries, you're like getting like a straight razor trying to scrape it off there. But yeah.
Did you know that you were going into the entertainment industry as a kid, or did you know in high school? You just like it's dawned on you like when did that light turn on?
It really wasn't until like my mom gave me the push when I was applying for film school in like my like sophomore year of college. So before that, like I always loved telling stories, I loved being a part of it and doing all that stuff. But I was like, I don't know how. Like, what do? You just show up to a studio and be like, I want to work here. Like,
Right.
I was like, I had no idea how the process worked or any of it, and so it really wasn't. Yeah, that's why my mom gave me the push. Like, go for it. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna write this. I'm gonna turn it in. I was like, whatever, Lord wills, Lord wills. And then got in, and from there, just like every single step from there was just kind of like miracle door open, because like I met someone that wasn't even at the school at the time, and he was working in a writer's room, and I got to know through him, and then coincidentally he was going to like Sundance for 2 weeks. And they needed someone to fill in for him. And I was like, all right, I could fill in for 2 weeks and grab lunches and coffee. And then from there, I was like, well, the same showrunner has like another show that's opening in like a month. And, would you want to go work on that? I'm like, yeah, I'll come work on that. And so I did that. Then I met, one of the really good bosses that I've had. And he's kind of brought me along to several projects from there. And then, so yeah, the Lord's really just opened like every single door from there.
When you were young, you said basically you've known the Lord your whole life. Your parents like infused this into you when you were a child, and the church.
Yeah.
And I don't know, anything stick out to you that like your parents just loving you and serving you and teaching you the word, taking you to church. I mean, it's supernatural that that you've just known the Lord your whole life. You've just walked with him, and as early as you can remember wanting to walk with him and follow him and always know that there's a God. Really, I mean, that's a miracle story, Oh,
100%.
We got kids, we're looking at them like, Lord, like
yeah, exactly. Praying over them, Lord. Yeah, keep them in your hand. Yeah. No, I don't really know if it was like nature, nurture. That was something I was born with and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, Lord really luckily just kept me in his hand my entire life. And yeah, I don't know. It's like part of like my parents like being so close and all of us like moving and traveling because it was just me and my mom, my brother, or me and my mom, my dad for most of my life because my brother didn't come along until I was like 12 and a half, like 13 by the time he was born.
Got it.
And so it was like really the three of us. And then because we were gone so much, there wasn't like a lot of family or anything. So wherever we went, it was just like, well, we're find a good church, and then that's like our new family. So
wow,
yeah, we kind of luckily got adopted, but like I had like spiritual grandparents everywhere we go that kind of like took me in and all that kind of stuff. And then we just learned, especially when we went over to England, because we were so far away from everyone. And then everyone getting, stationed there as well, or like very like young couples or like newer people. That's who we spent like our holidays with, was just people from the church. So we do Easter together, we do Christmas together, we do Thanksgiving together. Every Sunday after service and stuff, we go to lunch together. Like it was all these things that was just like we were always in like fellowship and communion and everything. So that was just like I didn't know any different. I was like, yeah, this is just like fun. We just do these things and we play with the the other kids and yeah, that was just It's a complete blessing in my life because I was like, ever since I was little, I was just like hearing like, scripture, the word, these teachings, preachings. And then my mom, teaching me, everything as well through homeschool. And then eventually when I went to actual Christian high school out in Arizona. So
you did?
Yeah, I went from 8th grade and then graduated all the way through 12th grade. And then went to Biola over in Orange County, and that's where I did like my final 2 years of like film school and Bible classes. So I had all my undergrads done. So it was literally just like film school, Bible school, film school, Bible school. And it was like back to back. So yeah, there's a lot of like knowledge that rattles around in here sometimes that people say something like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And you, so do you feel like any of the homeschooling like laid a foundation in your writing, or do you like the sharpening of your skills versus being in the private school, or vice versa? You know, like things that you gain in the homeschool system, things that you gain in the private school system.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely think like homeschooling, it definitely taught me to more just to think about things because there wasn't like a rigid structure of like, you know, you go from this class to this class and the bell rings, you go from here to there, and then you do all that stuff. And so we were part of like a lot of like homeschooling groups and stuff. So I was able to interact with a lot of kids, and we do all these fun like tours and events and, you know, all these things that we did. So I still got a lot of that like socializing.
Sure.
But then I also got like a lot of just like my mom kind of was able to like kind of teach me. And then if something that I got really quick, we didn't have to spend, you know, like a week going over that. We was like, all right, you get, you know, 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
All right, so we can go on to the next one and figure out, you know, little higher forms and other stuff. You know, if you really is something that was like really something to talk about or discuss or something, we could, you know, kind of take our time and figure stuff out. And there wasn't like a, you know, there wasn't trying to keep pace with anyone else or trying to like just follow a curriculum. It was really just going through like, do you understand it? Can you think about this? Are these things that you can like discuss and articulate and all that kind of thing? And then definitely like going into high school, it was interesting because like all of a sudden, like with all these people and figuring it all out together, and then all of a sudden you're just like, all right, so this is your course load and you go through here. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting way of doing it. Like, yeah, so it is kind of, I feel like beneficial to see like both sides, but I don't know. I really enjoyed the homeschool aspect because it felt like, you know, it's just all this one-on-one interaction, and mom can just completely like focus on me and pour whatever into and figure it out together almost. Cause then mom has to go back and figure out, oh yeah, what did I do? And did I figure this out? And yeah, this is pre-internet days. So there's no like Google, how do we look up these things? It's like, oh yeah, mom has to go back and remember how this worked.
Right.
Was it difficult you making that transition from homeschool into the traditional school setting?
8th grade, I was like, there was like a little bit, luckily, it was kind of a smaller Christian school as well. And so I think there's only like 60 of us in the class, but there's definitely a little bit of adjustment. But I mean, luckily, because like we moved so much, I had gotten like used to just like not so much chaos, but just like unpredictability. Like you just never know what's exactly, you know, is going to happen. And I feel like that's like great for where the Lord has me now, because like literally everything is just on faith. Like my job is very much like gig stuff, and everything that happens, like you never quite know. Like, well, the job may end at the end of the month, and then go find the next one or do all that stuff. And so it's literally just like every single time it's just, you know, I don't know if it's like the supernatural gifting of faith, or if it's just like every single time, like in the past, Lord has always just stepped in and shown himself here, and here. And it's like, all right, Lord, well, I showed up in the past. I trust you now. Like your word says it. I'm just going to believe it and trust in you and go from there.
That is an interesting connection because you had to move around so much around the planet, and with the military family, that the gig could be up, you know, anytime, and we have to up and move our family somewhere else. Got to go build new connections, got to go build new everything. And that bleeds into the industry and bleeds into the way that you do work. You know, it's the gig is up, the show's over. Now we got a new show on the horizon. God, you know, we're hoping you're going to bring something new.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the crazy thing, like just looking, because like in the military, you're able to like put down like your kind of your wish list of like, oh, these are like the 5 places I would like to go. But then, you know, the government's like, well, we're going to send you here. So you really have no control over it. And then I feel like even now, like as you get older and stuff in life, like if you actually list the amount of things that you actually have like direct control over, it's like, it's pretty small. So yeah, it's like living on faith is kind of how we do it on everything. So yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, it's different. I always like think about that too. Like, is it just something that I've like, just because I've experienced it so much that I kind of have that faith, or is it just something that, you know, a gift that the Lord's just given me that I'm just, you know, trusting on him? I was like, I'm not exactly sure where I fall in the camp, or if it's a hybrid of both or something like that, but it is something that I often think about, and then especially like kind of bleeds into my writing sometimes. I, you know, think about, you know, faith and how that works, and like, you know, because you actually just say it out loud, it doesn't make sense. Like, you're like, I'm just going to trust and believe that it's just going to work out. And somehow it does, even in ways that you don't expect and all that stuff. But you're like, yeah, when you say it out loud, it's like, this doesn't make sense, but it does, but it doesn't make sense.
Faith is difficult, right? Because it's the purest form of belief, you know, and you are believing something that may not even look like it is there. I think we're believing when we believe, it's not a blind faith, but we are believing in the one who has declared he's going to show up time and time again.
Yeah.
And we don't know how he's going to show up. We don't know what it looks like, but we do know his character.
Yeah.
We do know his attributes. We do know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And when he says he's going to provide for us, when he says he's going to take care of us, when he says he has a plan for good, not for evil. When he says that he's going to cause all things to work together for good, ultimately,
Yeah.
we can anchor in those truths. When he says he's going to give us a peace that surpasses understanding in the midst of these crazy storms that come upon us, we don't know what the storm's going to be. We don't even know our emotions that will show up in that storm, but we do know that we've been promised peace.
Yeah.
We've been promised rest. We've been promised provision, and everybody has a wild ride, you know. But I'll put on a cherry on top of that is there's nothing like the ride of the industry, nothing like the ride of trying to break into LA and get into this machine, you know, and figure it out and navigate it as a Christian, you know.
Yeah.
Try to love God through it, and because it's a war in here, right? It's a battlefield, and not only for position and money and power and opportunity, but also spiritually, right? There's a massive war going on. Were you shocked when you showed up to LA?
I don't know. I've never been like shocked at things. Like I'm always like never too high, never too low. I'm always like right down the middle and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I never get like freaked out. And that's like another thing. Like whenever I like go into jobs and stuff, like we always like to lay the analogy of like you're literally laying the train track as like the train's coming at you 60 miles an hour. Like that's how it can feel when you're on like a TV show, because literally like, you're writing, you're producing, you're trying to get everything due, and then there's like air dates. So you're just like trying to shovel everything you can to like get the train down as fast as you can before that train runs over you. So like I always have like that supernatural piece about me. I was like, it's just going to work out. We're going to figure out a way. Don't worry about it. We're going to do this. It'll be fine and all that stuff. And so that's been like a blessing whenever I step into it, because like everything turns to chaos like quickly. Like, I mean, you have like the best laid plans and there's like 200 people and everyone is like working on like different areas, and you have like, the writing going on, and then you have like actual production office and they're trying to find schedules and, how many days we're going to be filming on home sets, how many days we're going to be filming off the lot, how many days we're going to be here, what are the actor schedules, when we have guest actors coming in, when do we have this location, and then you have like people in post that are like editing the episodes, and so you're trying to like navigate, all right, so where we need, showrunner needs to be here, how do we get them here, and the actors here, and who's here, and so you're like literally trying to figure all this out. That I was like, I don't know, I'm always like, I love like whiteboards, and like I have giant whiteboards that I'm like blocking off, and like, all right, due dates here, due dates here, we're here. It's just that everyone can go and look, and it's like the calming effect at the end of every day is like everyone's like gathered outside the whiteboards, just be like, all right, so we know we're at here, we can make this date, we can do that, and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm always like, I love like an organized structure, and like at least there is a plan. It can change 100% after we have a plan, but like at least give me a plan that we have something to kind of start the navigation from.
Yes. Now you have this supernatural ability. I think maybe one of your superpowers, Rick, is you have an optimistic, positive mindset that we're going to figure it out. It's going to be fine. You have a calming spirit too. I think that like bleeds onto other people. Like it permeates kind of the room or wherever you're at. It's like you're just a calm guy, and like you're like and you're a joyful guy. And so it's like, it's going to work out. It'll be okay, and even if it's not okay, like right now in the middle of it, like just saying that and declaring it or just being in that seems to really impact, people around. I've heard it said that, anyone can impact somebody greatly. And one of the fastest ways you can do that is just smiling at somebody. And that a smile is the influence that sometimes someone needs. Yeah. And someone with a real joyful smile can actually bring like, impart joy like into a person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no, we feel that. I mean, we feel that on the podcast. We feel that we
at church every Sunday.
We do. It comes through Rick and all the serving and the men's group, and we get to partake of that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a joy to do it. I mean, luckily, like I had like great examples of my family. It's like when we get in church, like you get plugged in, you just start working, you start serving, you start helping people and all that stuff. And like, Lord gives me a lot of like fun gifts and talents and abilities. And so, you feed someone, you make a friend, but you give them a dessert, you make a best friend.
Yes. You make some crazy desserts.
Oh, thank you.
That lemon thing you made, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. It's like lemon
spice cakes.
Yeah. I know, it's like doing a whole bunch, and then all the other like groups and Bible studies, I have to like plan it all out. So like, all right, Tuesday Bible study, I do this. Wednesday Bible study, we do this. Yeah, Friday Bible study, got to bring this.
You got whiteboards for desserts.
Oh, pretty much. gotta have plans, man. You gotta have
I
plans.
love it, Rick. I love it.
Did you start cooking with your mom? Was that what you?
Is she a great cook?
Yeah, that was like one thing with my mom. Some of my earliest memories, I remember she would like be up on the counter kind of mixing. I'd be looking up and it's like, I want to help. And so she's like, would get a little step stool and I'd climb up there and she'd come up behind me and like show me how to start mixing and all that kind of stuff. And then it was just, me and my mom a lot because when my dad first got in the Air Force, he was driving transportation. So he was driving like the big semis. And so he was like, driving a lot from Ellsworth. He was going down to like Utah or Nevada and all this kind of stuff, doing all these drives. And so I was like,
Area 51?
He definitely did his alien tour.
Rick, what in the world?
Yeah, Area 51. He went to Roswell. So, I mean, he's definitely seen all
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah.
Transporting UFOs and missiles.
Yeah, you never know. There's
Can
like,
neither confirm nor deny any of that.
yeah. The craziest one is he got called out. It was like in the middle of the night. There was like a truck had like either had some sort of tire or some accident that had like gone off the side of the road. And so they were like the closest base to go out there. And they didn't tell him anything. It was just like part of the government vehicle went down. We had to go get it out. And they get this big semi truck and they're like, I don't know what this is, but all right, we do all that. And they get the truck, they get the big semi trailer onto a new trailer and then set it off and all that stuff. And it took them overnight. And then like, there's a weeks later or something, they actually get like a certificate from like the Department of Energy for doing that. And the Department of Energy handles like all of like the nuclear assets. So I don't know what was in there, but it was something to do with
Wow.
something important.
Did he ever see any UFO interactions? Nothing out there?
I don't think so.
No
I mean,
stories?
my dad was already kind of like the crazy alien enough. So
Okay.
yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
we'll see. But yeah, there's no crazy stories that he had of that. I mean, he would probably make up a story if he was telling you right here.
Yeah,
He'd be
yeah.
like, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I sit you down and I was going to tell you, it was late one night. We saw something.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so my dad could easily just spin up a story that you like half believe it. And then you start laughing. You're like, you don't believe any of it.
Right.
My dad was the same exact way.
Oh,
Really?
100%, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Dad was always like trying to make you smile, trying to make you laugh, trying to make you, just crack up about something. And he could like do it with all like a straight face, and then you just see like this slowly a smile come out, and you're like, oh, he's totally making it up.
So mom imparted baking to you,
Yeah.
and cooking and getting in all of that, and you have imparted it into the men's study. We thank
Amen.
you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We honor you. Rick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
know. And now I have like everyone's like wives come up to me after, and it's like, you got to remind my husband to bring some of that home. He comes home and he talks about having this like delicious dessert, and I was like, did you bring me any? And he's like, oh no, I don't. So now I'm like, I have to remind the husband, take some for your wife. Don't make sure you grab it now. Bring some for your wife.
The problem is they take extra, but on the way home they eat it.
What they do after that, I can't control. So
I sent you home with 5.
yeah, exactly.
I don't know what happened to those cookies.
There's one for you and all the kids.
Yeah.
What happens after that? That's
And those cookies are giant too. Giant
yeah.
cookies.
yeah, they're man-sized cookies. You gotta-
yes.
Warm when they come in. They're still warm. The chocolate.
yeah, I mean that's the best way. You gotta have fresh chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, that's Rick. I am curious. When you're at home with your mom and she's homeschooling you, and you said you walk with the Lord, you knew the Lord at a young age. Is there anything that your mom and dad like? Was there certain guidelines that they set that kind of kept you on the straight and narrow, or is it just the things that they were sharing with you? What was it that helped you stay that straight path? Because I mean, obviously you're a human. There's things that come into your life that could be tempting. Like what did they do that would help preserve that desire to seek after the Lord?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, when I was real little, my parents were definitely like got rid of like all like secular kind of stuff. So we got like no movies, no music, no anything like that. But I mean, they were still like coming to like their first like walks in faith and
Sure.
Christianity and everything as well. So I think it was part of like process for them. So I don't know, maybe that's like part of it as well. As it was just like a lot of us just like as a family hanging out together, doing stuff, really getting involved in churches, being a part of that, and then. Yeah, I don't know if there's any like specific things like.
It was a real wholesome environment overall that impacted you.
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of wholesome environments, and then like my parents growing and learning as well, like always trying to like bring me to church and doing all that stuff that I just always was kind of getting like that sponge that's just like absorbing everything that I could repeat all these sermons and speeches and all the stuff, but then it's like you grow up like, what does that actually mean when I say all these things? And so it's kind of like that curiosity part of me, and like kind of deep diving as well. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's part of just sometimes just the grace of God that it just kind of kept me there, and I didn't have that desire to kind of like go and rebel, or I was missing out on anything or doing all that stuff. It was just like no, this is good. Like, why would I get like happier than happy? Like, I'm already happy. I'm enjoying life.
Praise God.
Yeah, there's nothing out there that's gonna make me more happy than this. So yeah.
Yeah, you got to tweet that. You got to tweet that. You know, it's like because you have broken into the industry, and a lot of time the industry will drive people crazy. You know, it's it messes up people. You know, it really does. The industry, the influence. I don't know. I don't know if it's just the devil in there, the enemy, just like the spiritual warfare, trying to tear down everybody. But it's like trying to navigate the industry, the personalities, and then the influence around you. Everybody's, whether it's substance abuse or, you know, it's just darkness, you know, it's like it's just everywhere, you know, and obviously you can see it in the industry. It impacts LA, it impacts the film and TV, but here you are, you know, navigating through it and still holding to your faith.
Yeah.
And trying to walk with the Lord and able to somehow navigate it. How do I say this? It's almost like navigating treacherous waters, you know, like a mine, like the boat out there with like the mines like floating in the water. It's like, how do you get around those mines and like, you know, just keep dodging to make sure you don't blow up your faith, you don't, you know, blow up your life.
Yeah, your witness and everything else.
Yeah,
totally.
but still remain effective in an entirely secular environment.
Yeah.
I mean, has that dawned on you? How do you do that?
Yeah, every once in a while, I kind of think about that. I don't know. A lot of it, I just go back to a lot of the Old Testament and stuff like that, like seeing like Daniel taking in these like Joseph and all these different kind of figures that, you know, how do they get in the presence of, you know, kings and rulers and people of the world and all that stuff, and just try not to take credit for anything. Like I know like everything I have is, you know, I'm just a steward of all of it. Everything I've been given, all the talents and everything I have, it's all God's. Like he gave it to me for a plan and a purpose and just a time as this. So I just try to, you know, be faithful with everything I can and just really follow him. And it's not always easy, but it's, you know, always just, you know, constantly praying about it, constantly talking with God, just living, you know, this walk. Because no, I mean, there's, you know, incredible amounts of, you know, spiritual warfare going on, darkness. There's a lot of, you know, broken people. There's a lot of people that like, you know, everyone comes out to LA to try to be famous. That's like the big thing, like do anything for famous. And I mean, that's like a trap in itself. Cause like, I don't know, that's one thing if I tell anyone is like, don't try to be famous. Like everyone that I know that's famous, like it's not a happy life because you're constantly, you know, just dealing with everything in the world, and then, you know, people think that they know you even though they never met you before. Right. And then there's like that crazy thing that, you know, sure, everyone knows this image and stuff that you talk about, or they know you for being on screen and all that stuff, but they don't know you. They haven't been with you for like 15 years and seen the highs and the lows and everything that you go through. They just, you know, see you and they're like, oh, I know Brad Pitt. I've been, you know, seen all of his movies and I do all that stuff. And you're just like, yeah, I mean, you know him, but if you talk to him, like you would have no clue who he is or what he does or anything. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not who he is on the screen.
No, and I mean, you can't
He's just
be.
playing a character.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's the sad thing about, you know, a lot of people, especially like the social media age of like influencers and all this stuff, where it's like telling people, you know, just do whatever you can to be famous and make money. But then it's just like you get trapped in this thing, this kind of the dog eating its tail of, you know, you're just putting out this image and then you have to keep putting out that image because that makes you like money and fame, but then you're never you, and which is real you. So you get like that crazy, like, you know, actor's dilemma.
Yeah. Fame is, we were never made to be famous.
Yeah.
God was made. God is the one to be famous.
No, it's true.
He deserves all the fame and glory and honor. Humans aren't made to receive glory on that level.
Yeah, we don't do well once we have, you know, money and power and lording over people. And yeah, history is not kind to, you know, unfortunately, many people who have power and influence.
And so, no, it's a great warning, Rick, because it's especially being on the inside and seeing it, you know, for what it is. It is treacherous and dangerous, and you don't want to get sucked into that machine. So your biggest work that, you know, we'd love to hear, how in the world did you get into Netflix and get able to work on this show?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I don't know, the craziest is, you know, using a Christian to go work on Lucifer for like all 6 seasons. And that was, I don't know, it was just like really, you know, hand of God that I always like go back and like thank God for every single day, because it's just one of those miraculous things that opened up. But I had met the showrunner of that show in TV, like the showrunner is like the head writer, but then they're also like in charge of everything. So they're there for like the directing, and they handle the cuts that go air, and they handle any studios or network notes. And so their job is like the crazy, like you're not just writing, you're now managing like 200 people on this entire show and trying to like get it, from concept to air date.
Yeah.
And so I had met Joe when I worked on White Collar. And then from there, we kind of had like a good connection because he's kind of like a nerd about stuff, and I'm a nerd about stuff. We got to enjoy our nerddom together. And then he got an opportunity to go a showrunner show on Fox. Then like Lucifer was a show that like should not have gone. Like every other show, like it just got picked up at like the last minute because Bruckheimer, Jerry Bruckheimer really loved the script, and it's like, all right, so we'll make it because like he attached himself to produce the show, so they did it, and then like it shouldn't have gone, it shouldn't have gone, it shouldn't have gone. Like every single step is like it just squeaked in, and then finally like, all right, we'll make a pilot, and then because the network TV they actually go and make the pilot first, and they film the pilot, and if they like it, like all right, let's make an entire season out of it. And so luckily this kind of all worked out, and then Joe got to come on as the showrunner of the show, and he hired me as his assistant that first year. And so I was able to go on, and I don't know, that's what I really feel is like kind of, if you want to really do like a film school, is like go work on like a show. Because like you see the entire insanity of what it takes to actually like make something. Because like film school is like really great to build like community, and you kind of learn a lot about film theory, and then kind of really how like just experimenting with like cameras and angles and doing all that kind of stuff. You kind of get the first-hand experience, but then you get on a show and it's just like, this is like your doctoral thesis now, is go make this.
So you, so where did you study film at?
It's over at Biola University.
Yes.
Over in Orange.
Biola?
Yeah.
So that's right. You said you're doing Bible and film, Bible and film, Bible and film.
Yeah, just my majors.
And then the transition from Biola is to the guy standing on the stairs telling people to stop, right?
Yeah.
And then what are the steps or stages to, you mentioned White Collar?
Yeah.
So how did you transition basically from college to get into the industry? What are the things you worked on?
Yeah, so like 2013, I was doing a lot of set PA and doing all that kind of stuff, locking off and doing all that stuff. And then...
This is right after you graduated?
Yeah, right after I graduated. I graduated in 2012, in December 2012. And then like 2013, it was all just like be on set, doing all the kind of the odd man out, any kind of overflow days.
Got it.
And then... I knew there was a guy that I had known, or I didn't know directly at Biola because he graduated a couple years before me, but he was working as the writer's assistant on a TV show called Graceland on USA. And the writer's assistant is like usually in like a big room of writers. They'll have one person that's like keeping notes during this entire time as everyone's talking to keep it organized after the day's over. You can go back and see like, oh, this is where we landed on this story and that. And so he was going to Sundance for a couple weeks. And I had gotten to know him, and we kind of had like a writers group going. And I was always like the squeaky wheel getting the grease, like always just like going after it. And so he was going to be gone for Sundance for 2 weeks. And so he's like, can you fill in for those 2 weeks? I'm like, yes, I'm in. Let's do it. Like, I want to be around a writer's room. And so then I was there for 2 weeks. And then the same person who created Graceland also created the show White Collar on USA. And they were coming back for their final season in like a month. And so I was able to go from those 2 weeks to go work on White Collar. And so I was able to go work on the entire final season. That's where I ended up meeting Joe, who I went with on Lucifer.
Got it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I did like another show in between White Collar and Lucifer. Is like a short-lived TNT summer series called Proof. And then once that was over, luckily Joe was like, hey, do you want to come work with me on this other show? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So then, and then luckily I was on all 6 seasons of Lucifer. Like we started off on Fox, and then we were actually shooting up in Vancouver, and it was the show is actually set in LA, but we were using like Vancouver for LA. And so we had like, it's really funny, these palm trees that were on like dollies. So you just like wheel in palm trees, like, yeah, we're in LA. So, yeah. The rest of the country wouldn't know, but then like they walk by and there's like these underground like steam vents and stuff. And you're like, there are no underground steam vents anywhere in LA. But the rest of the country, if you never visited, you'll never know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
We could probably literally take this picture behind you and just like transport it anywhere, set it up and be like, we're still in LA, shooting podcasts. 100%. Palm trees mean LA.
Oh yes. Yeah. And that's, synonymous.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So Lucifer, I mean, this is a trip, right? Because it's like, I love it because I think when the first time I talked to you, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a writer, it's Netflix, so what's Joe? Lucifer. Wow, Rick. So I mean, it's really funny because that's right. I mean, it's like God's humor to me
100%.
because it's like you're stepping into legacy and we're getting Rick and this like, the pinnacle of the pinnacle of life and writing at this moment, is Lucifer, and it's like,
exactly.
It's really funny, but you're in there.
Yeah.
You're in there, man. And it's like I say this off the pulpit, like so many times, like, I can touch people you're never gonna reach, but you can reach people I'm never gonna reach. Like, you need to stay in your circle in the world. As long as you're able to, as long as it's not overtaking you and pulling you away from God, but if you can stay in there, and you're in the darkness, and you're in the rooms, and you're with the people, and you're loving these people and serving these people, and you're writing, you're behind the scenes, like helping write this thing and build it out. You literally are influencing, like this man, like someone filled with the Spirit of God, someone who's the heart of stone has been ripped out, the heart of flesh has been put in, loves Jesus, loves the Lord, and is in the TV series. Like, you know what I mean? Like watch these words connect. It's like, who would have known that in the writer's room of the TV series Lucifer, there is a Christian in there who people like and love, who loves the Lord, but is helping right in the darkness, who is helping right in the redemption, who is helping right in the light, who is helping infuse into these characters things that God has put in him. It's just like, when I think about that, I'm like, we need more of this.
Yeah.
We need God to be working in every writing room, in every part of Hollywood, right?
No, definitely. I mean, that's, part of the Great Commission, go out into the world. And I mean, the sad part is that, I really haven't, there's only one other person I kind of met in like all my years that I've been working for about 10 years that really was, that said they were a Christian. I mean, it's really most people, I'm kind of the only Christian that a lot of them have met.
Wow.
So
what's that like? When people find out that you're a Christian or you share, do they treat you a little different?
I don't know. You always get like that same kind of face of like, really? And then they're like,
but you're cool. What?
Yeah, but like, what kind of Christian? Like Catholic? Is that cool? I was like, no, it's not really Catholic. I was like, I can go on the whole deep Protestant Catholic divide and all that stuff. But no, it is definitely very. I know it's very different because it's always trying to navigate like being a great example, but then also never being afraid to also like speak about your faith. And so that's trying to have that same balancing act because it is very crazy, and everyone is spiritually looking for something in this town, even if they're not even if they're not consciously aware that they're seeking it, everyone's still trying to find, the purpose or the meaning of everything. And so it is, always being willing to discuss and talk about things, and also at the same time still trying to like love and serve people so that your actions are also, lining up with what you say, because so many people just, associate it with like Christianity with just like hypocrisy and just saying one thing doing another and all that stuff. And I mean the news also highlights all this stuff, so it becomes like the pastor that's doing this, or the pastor that's stealing, or all that kind of stuff. And so you kind of just have like just those examples that people kind of see, and then they see you as a person doing that, being something different, and they're like, I don't get it, like why are you a little different, like what is it? I was like, well, let me tell you.
Yeah. No, but what's great is when you're the light of Christ goes before you, and everybody loves Rick. It's just like, oh, I love Rick. Love working with Rick. It's going great. Oh, he was on this show. He did a great job. He's such a positive. Like you just great feedback all the time. I'm really thankful for him. And here, did you know he's a Christian? What? He's a Christian? Are you serious? You mean like those kind of people? Like,
is he Christian or Hollywood Christian?
Like those people. It's just like there's no way he can't be. I know Christians and they're not like Rick. Just, you know what I mean? It's like 100%. Your witness goes before you, and that's some of the best thing. And it's interesting when this happens, because being in LA, I mean, I've only been here 9 years, but what I've noticed is, like I'll keep it under the hood sometimes, it's just like I'm, whether it's, in the gym or I'm, somewhere out and about and this and that, I start talking and, we were at the beach, this last week, and we were there on the beach, and this guy comes up and starts talking, and he's like, he's got kids, and he starts talking to me, and I can tell he wants to I think he wants to try to get me in on a business or sell something to me or something.
Course,
And he start, talking to me and this and that. And he starts telling me his stories. He's like, yeah, I used to be a teacher, and I kind of got into business with a couple people, and now I don't have to do any of that anymore. We're financially free, and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, here we go. Like he's gonna
sales pitch is warming up.
Yeah. And mind you, I've got a flat bill hat on. I got my shirt off. I got board shorts on. I just been out in the water with the kids.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there talking, this and that. And we're just talking about kids and all that. And and then he, looks at me. He's like, well, so what do you do? I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually a pastor. I oversee a church in LA in Studio City. Just looking like, what? And he like, again, it's always class. You don't look like a pastor. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. I guess I know what you mean, but,
yeah.
But, if your witness goes before you,
Yeah.
and you become likable, a lot of Christians are weird, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Don't be weird if you're being weird, and, be Christ-like.
Yeah.
If just be who you are. You don't need to be anything else. But sometimes our Christianese and our over-exaggerating of spiritual principles in the public eye it just turns people off completely. They just don't even know what you're talking about. They're looking at you like you're an alien.
Yeah.
And, Christ said you must be in the world, but not of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're making fun of us or tearing us down for not running into sin with them, that's one thing. But sadly, let's talk about it. It's Christian films and or Christian TV shows sometimes are the weirdest things on the planet. It's just like, this is not good entertainment. Like, why do we have to put the Christian name and stamp on this,
Yeah.
And so it's great when someone who knows what they're doing is in there, is shining the light of Christ, and people say, you're actually excellent at your craft, and I would have, never placed you in position of Christian simply because of, I don't know, because of their idea of a Christian or whatever they have in their own mind is that they're that type or they're that person, and you break the mold. You break the mold, Rick, because you love the Lord. You shine the light, and you're in there with them, and they like you, and then now they don't know what to do now. Wait a minute, I like a Christian? Like, I really actually like this guy, and I want to work with the Christian?
Yeah.
I want
No
the
pressure.
Christian. I want the Christian in the editing room, I want the Christian in the writing room,
Yeah. No, and it's like, thankfully, that's like all the Lord as well. Cause there's for me, it's just a lot of prayer. Like I definitely have to like make sure that like I'm fully prepared to go into every single day because, I never know what I'm going to face, just from work in general. Cause we're always dealing with the same like creative problems, but like different at the same time. But then just like spiritually as well, you never know where else someone else is having a bad day. And you just have to, speak something into it that, is not super impactful for you, but for them, it can change the world. So it's definitely like having my own self, spiritually ready for everything as well, and then getting in time. It's like Jesus kept on going off. Like he'd go pray, he'd just go pray, he'd just go pray. So that's something that's like very impactful for me. Is like just having my own relationship and walk like with the Lord settled every single day before I even like go into work or do any of that stuff. I just have to be myself spiritually ready, and then just going in there. And I mean, it helps that I love what I do. Like it's just so much fun to like build and create, and then there's like that kind of crazy like chaos energy of like you're just trying to do all this and do all this and do all this, and you're just going and going and going, and then you finish it and there's like another episode to go, and then it's like childbirth because every single time you're always thinking the last episode that was the easiest one. It all came together so easy. We broke it easily, we made it easily, but not like this one. This is the hardest episode we've ever done, and then you finish it and like, oh my gosh, that last episode was so easy, it all came together, it was perfect, and this one, oh, this is gonna be our hardest episode whenever. You just kind of go through it, and so it's you literally just kind of like going through the like day by day, and just like you can't worry about tomorrow, and you just got to focus on like today. The Lord will figure out tomorrow, and then I just keep serving, keep following him every single day, and then just live it day by day. Don't try to figure out 10 years from now, 20 years from now how it's all gonna plan and purpose. It's like the Lord will figure it out. The Lord has a plan, he has a purpose. Like who knew exactly how all the chess moves are going to be made for like anyone that you go look back in kind of the Old Testament stories and all that stuff. Like if you're going to tell, all right, Abram, your life's about to radically change forever, and this is what's going to happen every single step of the way. Are you in? Like, how many people are like, I'm kind of comfortable. I like being a little nomad. It's kind of fun, just kind of roaming around here. And then, so I don't know. I feel like at times you're like, yeah, man, I wish I knew, like, all right, tomorrow this is exactly what's happening. Then 5 years from now, this is what exactly it's going to look like and all that stuff. But then at the same time, I don't know. It just has like, as the storyteller, it's like, do you really want to know everything that you're about to go through? Like, it's not always going to be ups and downs and hills and valleys and all that fun stuff. But it's just like that everyday trust and faith of like, all right, Lord, you gave me another day. Like, I'm here to serve and do it. Like, I thank you for like everything that you've done. And I'm like, I always try to like in my prayer life be very thankful and remember all the times like God showed up here, he showed up here, he showed up. Even like small stuff that you don't even like think about is like being very impactful. It's like, Lord, I just remember praying about that like 3 months ago, and it was just like a little off the cuff, like, Lord, you know, it'd be really nice if I could just have steak. That sounds really nice. And I just pray for steak, and then all of a sudden I get it, like, and then it comes back to me like, oh, you know, that was the Lord. Thank you. Like, I didn't even plan it or do anything. I just like, you know, had dinner with someone, and they just were making steak. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how it worked out. Thank you. So yeah, so it's always just, you know, trying to be thankful and be appreciative of everything, and that just kind of, I don't know. I feel like that kind of bleeds into everything that I do. Is just, you know, I've been, you know, given so much, and the Lord is like, you know, given so much grace to me that, you know, I can't help but just want to, you know, help and serve people just with everything that I have. So.
That's awesome. I got a tough question for you. So in the writer's room,
Yeah.
are there hills you're going to die on?
It depends on what you mean by like hills, like spiritually or just like storytelling points.
Storytelling points and spiritually. Are you just 100% resolved that you like, because I'm trying to think of like the way you go to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have a Christian worldview, you love the Lord, and then you go to work. You know that evil is going out through a lot of these stories.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know that you're in the writer's room. If you're not there, then no Christian's there.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have this sense of like, I'm here and I've got to let some of this go. But is there that story or point, or do you have a story where you're like, I'm not gonna let this one pass through, or I'm not, or is, you know what I mean? Is there anything you can share in that regard?
Yeah, I don't know if there was like any like story points in like a room. There's definitely like some development stuff that they were like doing, and like books and stuff that they're sending, and there's stuff I was like, I never want to like touch any of that. But I don't know. In the story, it's like there's some stuff I would definitely like say it wasn't like truthful, or it wasn't like spiritually real and all that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of like prayer about that. And then I don't know how you navigate things is more of like, instead of, because you can't speak to things on like a spiritual level, so you have to think more on like a character journey, truthful level, and then also just like something that's like morally or philosophically, logically true. And so it's just trying to like, you really have to kind of reframe and rethink a lot of your arguments, that in order to say, well, I think
That's good,
it should
yeah.
be something like this, because you just can't appeal to someone that doesn't have like a spiritual or moral foundation with
Really
things.
good.
But if you can appeal to someone, you know, logically, or if you appear to someone in like a story, like I just don't feel like, you know, it makes sense for the character to go down this type of path, unless we're going to say this about it at the end, then, you know, then the weight of their consequence and all that stuff. But if it's just, you know, to try to get that moment or that feeling, I don't know if that feels exactly true. So it's,
And I'd add, I don't even know if this is true or not, but I guess I'm just following your line of reasoning is that you're not necessarily trying to blow up the person's idea,
Yeah.
you know, and press, you know, the red button,
yeah.
but you're trying to help navigate on a logical level for them, like you said, thinking through their mind and the story and the character, and really turn it, turn it away from, maybe we shouldn't have them, I don't know, kill the child and throw it off, the cliff. That's not going to be good for society, and I don't think the viewers are going to like that.
Totally,
and I don't think that that is even part of the character's narrative. Like, that character wouldn't go down that path for XYZ reasons,
Yeah.
and so maybe we should, redirect the other way. And I think that's, again, I don't know, because obviously every single person has a compass, right? They have a moral compass in there.
Yeah.
And your moral compasses are going to war in that writer's room, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's pulling different directions and trying to get something to go.
Yeah.
And it's cool when you have a bit more pull, in the room. And if God gives you wisdom in that moment to help navigate something and channel it kind of a different way in order to bring forth a different outcome. Obviously, it's probably not always going to work, but it's interesting to think through how God might use you to help navigate stories in a more palatable way that the audience wants to digest that, and one that also I don't know how else you turn it. I'm hoping in a redemptive way. Where it brings it brings either in a redemptive way, whether it even ends in darkness, it's still a dark truth that hits you and says, I never want to be that.
Yeah.
I never want to go there. I don't like that, or there is a bright light at the end of the tunnel where it's like there is that glimmer of light. There is that gospel hope like sneaking through.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is like, you're in a subversive way, you're moving the stories around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always try to be like always go
great.
back to like a truthful point to all the stories and like find those like what story are we telling? What character journey are we telling? And is this the best way to show that or tell that? Like, I don't know. I feel like some of the like most spiritual kind of themed movies are not necessarily even have to be Christian or anything as well, but like like The Matrix has like so many interesting analogies and points.
For sure,
that point
good
to, like,
point.
Right.
truthful things, and they're created by people that are not Christian at all, don't have any kind of spiritual understanding of that kind of sort, but it's still touching on these like real truths. I mean, there's something about like love that just like transcends every language, any people on the planet. Like we all understand this feeling of like wanting to be loved, of loving someone else, of having a sacrifice. Why is that always like the most valued thing among any country in the world, any civilization, any culture, any time period? Is always like these similar stories that always have the same thing of like being willing to die for like someone else, like these masculine and feminine qualities of why they're treasured and valued. And it's these same things that like hit people just every single time that you're kind of touching upon. And it's human beings are more alike than we like to realize, and you get to touch on these things that there is a deeper understanding to everything that there is. Like it's like the Matrix. It's like there's a surface level that everyone knows, but then underneath it there's a whole world that you don't know, and anyone that's like not unplugged from the Matrix can be taken over at any time by like an agent.
It's so good.
force.
It's so good. You're like, the more we talk about this, like you are a secret weapon. Literally. I mean, no, seriously,
Yeah.
you are a secret weapon. Okay, so a follow-up question I got to ask this is that, do you see like a lot of would be the way, like the influences of political influences and some of this woke stuff
Oh yeah.
that we see? Does that come into the writer's room from outside influences, money-wise?
Somewhat. I don't know. It's very. I don't know if there's like an actual concerted effort to kind of bring it in. It's just how like so many people just like think, and that's just how it's like talked about. That it's like, oh yeah, that's just how it is. So there's not like a lot of like different opinions or diversity of thought on some of the ideas. Is just like that's how everyone talk that I know. That's how everyone that I think kind of believes these things. So this is just how it is, right? And everyone is like,
So someone's not picking up a phone and going, we're going in this direction now.
oh no, I've never seen anything like Crazy Dr. Evil, that style, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's no mini me that's like coming up and like telling you, yeah. So no, it's just I think it's a lot of you just get kind of talking with everyone, and that's how everyone just thinks that it's around you. So that's what you just think is common.
Yeah.
So it just kind of just gets in that kind of sphere of influence that everyone around you talks and says the same things that you do, and so you just think that's just how the world is, and you go out in the world and like this is very different than LA.
Right.
It's interesting that you mentioned like the Matrix and the underlying themes in there, because I think it's obviously it was a great movie. Everyone enjoyed it, but those people who dug a little deeper, like that movie is one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah.
And before I was a believer, a guy randomly came to my door. Like I was sitting in my car with my friends outside of work, and he came to the door and he was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something. You ever seen the movie The Matrix?" And he like used the movie The Matrix as a point of reference and was sharing the gospel with me. These stories of redemption. And,
Awesome.
like it was crazy. But you take a piece of art like that, The Matrix, and see how the Lord can use something like that just to grab someone's attention. So to see or to know that you're in those places where you're able to pull out ideas and truths in these stories, or push truths in these stories, and still do it at a high level to where it's an enjoyable experience. It's an enjoyable piece of art. Like it's really cool to see how God has placed people in different environments. Like I have a friend who's a teacher, and he talks about being in like the teacher's lounge, and everyone has a certain worldview, and they're all like focused on these certain ideas, and he's a different like against those ideas, but he's not like outrightly like, well, you guys are all wrong. Like
Yeah.
he's trying to find ways how to navigate and develop relationships with people and influence different teaching styles or parts of the curriculum and things like that, where he can be an influence in that sphere where I'm not at or
Yeah.
you're not at. And it's cool to see how God has placed people in those different areas. I thought it was interesting you brought up Joseph and Daniel. Like these are men that God was using greatly in these very, very secular environments. Like Daniel was, he's in the king's court, and
multiple kings, yeah.
like, and this is like, man, like who else but God to use someone like that? And then you see after God uses him, the kings will glorify God. They will sing the praises of God, like blessed be the God of Daniel. Like, and it's cool to see how God can use someone if they're willing to be used with their gifts, talents, and abilities. In those different areas.
No, definitely. I mean, that's like, I don't know, the cool story of like Joseph too is like, he has these dreams and then he's like sold off into slavery. And then all through those years, he probably never met anyone else that knew Yahweh this entire time. And then, he gets elevated to this position, but then he still like names both of his children after, Yahweh. So it's like, obviously he still is like remembering these promises and keeping, even though like, the Bible doesn't mention it. And probably at the time there was not a lot of people in Egypt that followed, the Lord, that, that he would still remember those promises, and that he like marries like the high priestess's daughter too. I was like, the crazy things that, you never know exactly where God is, sending you or leading you and all that stuff. And so it's really one of those things that it's like, everything's just walking on faith. Like so much is walking on faith. And it's not easy. Like I'm sure there's many times if you just like talk to Joseph, like, picked a random day in there that, it's not easy being in prison. It's not easy going through this like day after day. And you're just like, was that really true? Was that like an actual dream that I had? Is that something that, will I ever get there? Is that, I don't see any way out from here. Like everyone's forgotten about me. I'm just here alone. My brother sold me off like years ago. And then eventually you get in that position at the end where it's like, all right, and now that I have the power, am I going to get revenge on my brothers? Am I going to like, do to them what they did to me? And then you see like this, testing and then this forgiveness of even, Joseph to all of his brothers and all of that. And I mean, that's just like a small microcosm of like the entire like Israel journey as well, that you see all these like little points, but yeah, it's amazing.
So back to the writer's room.
Yeah.
What exactly is the process? Like, what happens? I mean, day one, you guys just show up with your laptops. You guys show up with a pen and paper. You guys, how are these writers first selected? How many are in the room? What is the process?
Yeah, it depends on the episode order of the shows. So now that it's like a little smaller, like 8's kind of like the new standard episode for a season of TV. There's, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 writers in a room, and then the showrunner or showrunners, if there's 2,
They're just handpicked by.
Yeah, the 2 showrunners kind of pick it out. Like, it's usually like people that they know, have worked with before. Because it is like part science, like part alchemy, because you have to like find people that are like good on the page, they're good in the room, but you also can't have like 8 people that are all like super like heavy pitchers as well, because then like no one can talk. So you have to get like the right amount of like, all right, so you're really good in the room, but you're a little bit more thoughtful, but you'll come with like a good idea. So it's really trying to like find this really good balancing act of like people in the room and chemistry. And then especially if not everyone has worked together, you kind of have to build that kind of chemistry and trust, because I mean, it is a lot of vulnerability that you're discussing as well.
Now, Rick, is AI changing the number of that room?
It hasn't done anything yet. I don't know. That's something. I mean, AI hasn't quite figured out how to be a complete, storyteller or doing anything. It's definitely affecting more of like actors now, as it's replacing, background actors, and then like voice actors completely. The AI can create completely digital voice. You can type in, but it hasn't affected like the writing yet.
Okay.
But yeah, after everyone gets hired, you kind of go into the room, and then most of the time in most writers' rooms, it's just like a big table, or it'd be like couches, and then it's just a lot of whiteboards around all the walls.
Okay.
And then they try to like, usually like no cell phones, no laptops or anything, and it's just like the one writer assistant that like is keeping track of all the notes. And then, usually day one, we call like the first couple weeks are like blue sky. Cause you just come up there and it's like, everything, the world is open to you. What do you want to do? And so you just like start, getting on whiteboards and like, all right, so here are characters. Like, what's the character arc for the journey? Where do we want to see him go from the beginning, like this first season of where we're going and all that stuff. So the first 2 weeks is really just like kind of throwing stuff on the wall. And then you start seeing stuff that you like, and it slowly starts taking shape. The showrunner's like, I don't like that idea, but I kind of like this idea. Let's kind of explore some more of this. And you kind of go down this direction.
So the showrunner is the captain, basically.
Yeah, basically. It's all like, because most of the time the showrunner is the one who originally like wrote the pilot and then kind of go work on the show, or they develop the idea, and so it's kind of like their voice is in the show, and then you're just kind of like trying to copy and mimic it while also kind of putting your heart into it.
Yeah.
Are they sort of the producer?
Most of the time in TV, like definitely the showrunner is like an executive producer as well. But then a lot of the other writers in the room will be producers.
Gotcha.
And so you actually go to set and then you actually produce your episode. And so you're there for like all the days of prep and the actual days of like filming. And then you go into the editing room. But then as as you go through the blue sky process, you actually start going, all right, so episode 1, now we kind of have figured out the character, arcs for the first season. Episode 1, how do we start it off? And then you just kind of start going out like beat by beat. It's like, all right, so we kind of, if we start the episode here, we kind of want to end it here. And then you just kind of like start backfilling and filling stuff. And then it's really easy if you have like a show that's like more procedural based. So if it's like a cop that's solving a crime, or a lawyer that has a case, like, like, all right, end of act 1 is here, end of act 2, you know, kind of all the benchmarks for all the episode. But then if it's more serialized, where it's just kind of like, a story that's unfolding over 8 episodes and there's not really like a structure to every single one, you're kind of like figuring out, especially if it's like a brand new show, you're kind of figuring out like how all the characters fit together. And then so as you figure it out, then it goes up to have like these big whiteboard magnets. They're magnetized on one side and it's a whiteboard on the front, and that becomes like your episode, your scene. So it's like, interior, whatever scene, and then you just start like writing, beats, and those beats start to come on until you have like every single beat on the board, and like, okay, let's go into the first scene, and then you actually start going in the first scene, and then you put it out, and the showrunner, kind of goes with what he wants or what she wants on the exact, scene of like, so all right, so they enter, they talk about this, there's some of this conflict, if there's like a dialogue line that they like, make sure that the showrunner has it in there. So if you're the one writing the outline, you're like, all right, I know they love this line, make sure it stays in there.
Right.
Yeah. And then from there, like, you just go through like scene by scene until you have the entire thing laid out on an entire, several 8-foot long whiteboards. And it goes down there and then it's like, all right, read it through. Does it all make sense? And then you're like, all right, good. And then whoever's writing that episode goes off to write the outline, and then the room, episode 2, let's do the same thing. And then they kind of peel off, and then, episode 1 comes back with the outline, the showrunner does that, and then gets their notes, and then they go through the process, and then they, have to go to the studio or the network to get notes back and feedback. And then once that outline gets approved, then you go off to draft, and then you're writing it, and then the room is still going, so they're working on episode 2 and then 3, and then someone peels out to write the outline of 2, and someone's peeling out the the script. So you have like, all these various stages, and it gets even more crazy if you're actually in like a network show. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of time these streaming, like they'll write all the episodes first and then decide if they actually want to go and film the show. When we're on network show, it's like we'd start in May. Our air date was like September 11th. It was always like, somewhere around there was the first air date. So then you have like 8 weeks of the room, and then prep starts. And so you're literally turning in script, and then like someone's off on draft, someone's, in prep for their episode, someone's on set for the episode, someone's in post for the episode. And then you're just like, pulling in people. It's like, all right, who's back from where and what? And then we're on episode, and they're like, oh yeah, I looked over the notes yesterday and see where we're at, and then you just go through the entire process.
So you kind of have to be a Swiss Army knife to some degree, because right, you not only help with the writing, the arc of the story in the whiteboards, but then you also will peel off, as you say, to go and write that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's a lot, because you're going off to, if it's your episode, then you're actually going off and like writing the outline, and then you're going through the entire notes process of that, and then once that gets approved, then you're actually going off and writing an actual draft and the script, and then you go through that.
You're writing lines. You're starting to do the whole thing.
You write the entire thing. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely like some dialogue stuff comes up as you're like going through the break and all that stuff.
Is that a trip? I mean, when you see your lines like coming through the mouth of the actor, like on the screen?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you go back and like look at it, because a lot of times, like, once you're like finished with a project, then you don't see it air till much later. So you go back and look at it and like, oh yeah, that was funny. Like, I remember writing that line, and you remember the joke about like in the room of like, that's stupid joke, that'll never make it in the show. Just throw it. It's a placeholder for now. And then you like,
wow,
yeah, that made it all the way through. It made it all the way through.
That's fun. It's almost like an entire TV show behind the scenes of every episode, because the writers could tell endless stories about the writing process and how it came together.
I mean, that's what most of it happens whenever you get together with like a lot of the other writers or people that you work with. It's always like, everyone loves to like, what's the crazy story that like you had to deal with on this show and all that stuff, because it's a weird process, because you have like showrunners that are like, really great writers, and they're like know how to write really well, but sometimes, the actual showrunning job is so much more of like a manager as well. Like, you're not there just writing like the day-to-day scripts. You're managing all these people, you're managing time, you're managing the budget, you're managing like so many different process that, you know, if you don't have a really good showrunner, it really trickles down to, you know, and that's a super stressful job. So you really have to know how to like delegate and not micromanage, because if you try to do it, like you get burnt out. And then, you know, there's a lot of crazy stories of like showrunners that would like come in the afternoon at like 3:00 after the room's been there all day at 10, and they're like, all right, pitch me the story. And then if they don't like the story, you're like, well, order dinner. We're going to be here late. So,
oh man.
Yeah. So it can vary, and it's a weird process.
Is it hard working with all those personalities?
It can be. It depends. Like when you go in like season 1 of a show, everyone's kind of feeling each other out. Like, all right, so who are you? Are you the funny one? And you're trying to figure out all this stuff. And so it is like, you know, another part of like the showrunner process is picking everyone out. But then usually by the end of it, like you all get like squished together so much in this stressful situation that you all like kind of learn to trust each other and you go through the process. And then hopefully you get another season and then you get to do it again. And other times just like, well, that family was fun. On to the next family. And you're just trying to build all that stuff. So it's like, you know, another thing that's just like completely out of your control. Like you never know if an audience will show up or not.
How long did you write on Lucifer? You said 6 seasons?
Yeah, I was there for all 6 years, and then
6 years.
Yeah. And so we started off in Vancouver, then we moved down to LA and filmed the last several years in LA. Then the first 3 seasons were on Fox, the last 3 were on Netflix. And so I got to see like the entire different process and all that kind of stuff.
Any major moments that still stick out to you, like of that whole, you know, journey of just like man, that was amazing, or I just can't believe that, or I don't know, you know, just
No, there's definitely like a lot of them. Like seeing so many times, like the Lord just kind of showed up on stuff. Like because at the end of season 3, the show was canceled, and so Fox decided not to pick it up. And then everyone was like, "The fat lady sung, like it's over, nothing's gonna happen, nowhere's gonna go." And I'm just like, man, we were just getting rolling, like we were having like a nice long, like year-long, you know, paychecks and all this kind of stuff, and then we go and it's like show's over, we're done, and then it's like, all right, so what do I do now? Like we're all just like in this limbo part, and then like miraculously like Netflix like came in and is like, this show does really well in, you know, like South America for us and in Europe for us, we, you know, we're kind of interested in picking it up. And then that became like a whole, you know, legal process, and then they got picked up miraculously. And so then it was like working on that, and then going down from like we were doing 22 episodes a year to now just doing like 10 episodes in like a Netflix style. So then it's like, all right, we don't have like commercial breaks. So then do we keep commercial breaks? How do we do that? And then like in network TV, or you always have like exact time limits. Like you have like a narrow range of, you know, 20 seconds you can differ, but you have to hit these times just to make sure they get all the advertisements and commercials in there. But with Netflix, like, yeah, as long as it doesn't go over, you know, like 65 minutes, it's, you know, an hour long. And you're like, okay, well, how do we play? Like, do we want longer episodes now? Like the show's already tight at like 43 minutes. Does it? And so then you kind of play around, and so it's really fun to like learn and grow on the show along with everyone else, because like Netflix, a lot of people hadn't worked on like Netflix shows before, and so seeing how that process worked, and then going from like a Fox, and then, you know, how the industry and business was kind of changing as well to these new streaming models and everything. It was really, you know, cool to learn all that in this same space.
For those who are listening who don't know the story arc of Lucifer, can you give a quick synopsis?
Yeah, definitely. It's semi based on the DC comic of this Neil Gaiman that wrote in Sandman. Lucifer shows up and it goes off from there. But in the TV show, the basic premise is start off with the devil. He's gone bored in hell, ruling hell all these years. He's tired of doing it. He leaves hell, comes up to LA, and opens like a nightclub. And so he meets these people, and people like start wanting favors from him. So he does like favors for them. And then in the first episode, like a singer that he done a favor for is having a hard time. She comes to Lucifer for help, and then she ends up getting like murdered, like right outside the club. And so now he's like, well, who would kill this person that I was like trying to help? And so then he's like, wants to find out murder, like who killed her? And then he gets involved, like a police detective that's like actually solving the crime. And so through this, he's like, they end up like finding the killer. And then there's like, you know, chemistry between him and the female cop. And so like every single episode, it's like a procedural. And it's the most ridiculous thing ever, because it's literally like the devil solving crimes. Like, that is the entire premise, is like someone gets murdered and the devil is like trying to figure out who killed this person. And at the same time, he's learning more about humanity and himself. And then there's like another like kind of the B story of every episode is like his one of the angels from heaven is there to like, it's like, all right, Lucifer, you've had fun on earth, you need to go back, like go back to hell. You're supposed to be in hell. No one's in hell, no one's guarding the gates, like you need to go back to hell. And so it kind of, there's like a supernatural story, and then there's like the human story. But it's kind of like this big long I mean, the central theme of the show is like a redemption story because you have like the rebellious son who like waged war against his father and then got kicked out of the house, and then he's like everything's like I hate you, Dad, and then it's like going this story of like finding redemption and forgiveness in that kind of story.
How much of that story could be true here in LA?
Yeah. I don't know. That is a good question.
He
Like,
left hell,
yeah.
came to LA, started a nightclub.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
man,
Wandering and walking the city streets. Yeah.
it's like it's the city of angels,
Yeah.
fallen angels, but yeah, no, it's a trip to think through because it's we know, he surely like walks these streets.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It just popped into my head. I'm just like, man, that sounds like real life a little bit. And I mean, I've heard some crazy stories from people, who have been here in LA for a long time and have been into nightclubs and
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
gotten into a lot of darkness and swore that the devil was over in the corner of that club or over in the corner of that room. I met him, that kind of stuff, and just like, oh wow, like this is real spiritual warfare here. But amazing that you got to be on a show of that stature for so long. It kind of set a precedent already for your life, and like you said, you got to learn the industry. I mean, kind of through this show.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're still full speed ahead.
Yeah, still going. I mean, the whole writer strike and now actor strike and everything has kind of put a pause on like everything around the world.
For those who don't know what's happened, Rick.
Yeah, back in May, the studios and the writers couldn't come to an agreement over their union contract. So the writers have been on strike since May 1st now, and then the actors could not come to agreement. And so ever since July 13th, the actors have been on strike. And so that's shut down like everything development, production-wise from the studios around the world. So.
And what is it? It's like this is the first time this has happened in like...
Yeah, the 1960s was the last time that both actors and writers were both on strike at the same time.
So it's been like 80 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
And this is they're dragging this one on.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the confluence of events that unfortunately happened. Like I think there definitely would have been a writer's strike because it's every 3 years they have to do a union contract. So the last time was like 2020, but because it was right in the middle of the pandemic and everything, like everyone was like. Everyone just needs to keep working. So they just kind of like made a quick like slapstick agreement. Everyone kept working, not much changed. And so it probably would have happened last time in 2020 if there hadn't been a pandemic. And so there's just a lot of, the industry's changing. Internet has kind of changed a lot of stuff. Streaming models changing on. So there's a lot of these things that are just all kind of happening at once. And there's a lot of stuff to figure out, like exactly like how do salaries and all these things work now with like streaming and then residual checks that you get for like episodes that you've been in or starred or written, and how do they re-air, and then what are the royalties and all that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of new business models to figure out exactly how all the money's working. And then,
Got it.
Yeah, so it's very complicated. So people need to talk more, not less. But
right.
Yeah, I feel like that could be part of any part of our life in the world in general. So
that's true.
Talk more. So.
Yes, communication.
Yeah, I mean,
the way
dialogue.
that the streaming is like everything's changing. I mean,
Yeah.
Netflix and like you just said, like going from what was that show? It was on a different network. It was on CBS.
Which show?
Lucifer.
Oh, it was on Fox. Yeah,
It was on Fox. Then it went there.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing shows on Netflix or shows on Prime that you'd pay for go to like Freevee, which
Yeah.
has ads.
Yep.
And so like season whatever will jump over.
Yeah.
And they're not getting those residuals, and they really should. So this is an important time right now, and I'm with the writers. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
writers.
there's a lot of things to figure out and discuss because the actual streaming model is different. I mean, back when we worked on Fox show that was like 22 episodes a year, that was like the standard, and even before that, it was like 24 episodes a year was like the standard for most shows. And so, I mean, you always had like a year-long employment, and then you were getting actual like script fees and then producing fees for all these episodes. And now that everything's gone down to like eight episodes, it's a lot less. Even though the budgets of the shows are like really big and massive because so many like actual visual effects and all that stuff stuff is kind of ballooning all the budgets. Like the actual, writing fees and all that stuff has changed, and for actors and all that stuff, and now dealing with as AI is slowly starting to, people are trying to figure out how do we use that and all that stuff. So getting protections from that, there's just a lot to figure out.
Right. How much are you involved in the shooting process? Do you actually show up on set and you're just like, no, in my mind's eye, it didn't look like that. Like, that's not what I wrote when I wrote palm trees, like this is not the right palm tree. We need sago palm. This is not the, I don't know,
Yeah, exactly. There is definitely, it depends on the show now, because in the streaming stuff, like a lot of times you're just writing it and then you may not be in the production, but everything that I had done in the past on my shows, luckily we were still able to like write it, and then if you wrote the episode, you actually go to set and produce it. So usually the hour is like 8.5, 9 days is kind of the average shooting for like a regular 1 hour episode of TV.
Wow.
And then so you do like 7 days of prep, and then you show up on the first day of prep, and then the director will be there, and then you have all the department heads, and you're like the big conference room, and you just go like scene by scene, and the director's kind of laying out all the stuff, and then all the assistant directors are making sure that all the department heads are on the same page, and then from there you like go scouting, and then you see if like actual day to night scenes need to change, because like we need to be in using our home sets more than like going out, because that's more expensive to go out than be in, and then all that kind of stuff. So you're kind of refining the script, and then actually you go to like day one of shooting, and then you go there, and then you're like rehearsing with the actors and going through it, and then the director has more authority like on set due to their like director's contract agreement and stuff. They kind of are the ones that have control on the sets. You're kind of working with the director, and the director and the actors have questions, and so
you like walk up and it's like no, it's not I'll be back, it's I'll be back.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're not doing it right. It's not I'll be back. You're not doing it. It's
Yeah, like this. Yeah, I mean it's the fun alchemy as well, because you have so many people. Like the directors bring their vision and how they see the episode, and then sometimes you go into it and you're like, oh man, this is really awesome. Like it's really brought something out that I wasn't like picturing it when I was writing it. And then you go to the other parts and you're like, I think I could have done this a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then you're like, should I just direct maybe? And then you're like trying to figure that out. And then you have, everyone else from the actors, and they're bringing their input and how they're seeing it. And then it's interesting because like actors are always like focused on like their character, since they've been with them for so long and know them. And so then every scene is like looked at through like that character's perspective. And then the writers like we're trying to look at it as like holistically of like this character and all this stuff. So you look, and then you see like this granular perspective of theirs, and you're like trying to figure out, okay, maybe that's kind of true. How do we navigate that, and how do we work?
You ever get any fights break out on set? It's just like, no, it's not. I'll be back. It's like the actor's like, no, I know the character. And you're like, no, I wrote the character. Like, you're to do this. And like, I'm not doing that.
No, luckily I haven't had any massive fights on any shows that I worked on. I've known other writers that have had like really crazy stories of like actors refusing to like say lines, or actors refusing to have scenes with like other actors, or doing all that stuff. Like it's
wow,
it's insane. There's the shows that
they get so caught up in the character, like I'm against that person. I'm not doing that.
Or just in like regular life and stuff. There's so many actors that I've known like from other shows and stuff that have like where they actually like got into a relationship like off screen, and then they like broke up off screen, and now they don't want to be like on screen with like another person that they were dating and all that stuff, and so it becomes like I don't want to work with, and then it just everything blows up.
That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like one thing. It's like never date your other actors. Like don't do it. Whatever you do, that's like don't do it. It's bad. It's bad. Yeah, because something's always going to happen. Someone's going to break up, and then unfortunately, like if you're the lead, you're going to stay on the show. If you're not the lead, you're going to be probably gone. So it's like don't do it. It's bad.
Yeah. What has happened to the film and TV industry with this whole subscription model?
Yeah.
Netflix, it seems like there's been an entire, redirection of movies and TV, and there's like no good movies anymore. Like for the last like 3 or 4 years, there's just like not a single good movie. I mean, we got Jesus Revolution, of course, shout out, right?
Yeah.
No, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's like all of the films have just stopped. It's like, it's I don't know what it is. It's like Katie and I'm like trying to rewind back to when it was, but I do remember a year where we were waiting for like a good film to show up, and a lot of films were still coming out, but it was just like, I want to know what that really good film is.
Yeah.
When years prior, we always felt like there were like 3, 4, 5
every couple
great
months
films that would come out each year, but then it was like, then we were just waiting for one great film. We're like, gosh, we hope to do one good film this year.
Yeah.
Now there's like no films. It's just basically like all superhero, like there kind of is nothing else coming out.
Yeah.
It's like kids movies or superhero, and like then you get like some random movie that shows up and like nobody watches it, and it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, what's happened?
I mean, there's so much that's kind of attractive part of it. I mean, like the streaming model definitely changed a lot of it with everything coming to like your screen or your TV or your home. The pandemic kind of accelerated like people not going to the theaters as much. And then like all the theaters, how do we differentiate from being like Netflix that people could just, pay their monthly subscription, not have to go to a theater, spend all the parking, dinner, all that kind of babysitter. So then movies, so like we have to be like something that TV can't. We have to be big budget. TV, you're confined by like time and money. Movies, we have more time, we have more money, so we're going to put more production value to go see it on this big screen. You put more money on things, all of a sudden there's a lot more risk because like we're spending $250 million, $300 on a movie. This movie has to make $1 billion. If that movie has to make $1 billion, there can't be any controversy. We have to make exactly 4 quadrant. It has to appeal to all these things. And then like the prep time is like, all right, we have a release date for 2 years from now. We have to hit that release date no matter what. All of a sudden, like the director's coming and going, director doesn't agree with something, director leaves, new director comes on. We're still hitting this release date no matter what. Then like, all right, so we have a prep going on. We're already like, visualizing all the action scenes before. So the director doesn't even come in for like that part of the process anymore. So it's just a lot of, unfortunate circumstances that like all hit at once. And so no one really can take like that kind of creative risk or chance anymore that they used to. Like, you're not going to get like the Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of coming out anymore. That's, kind of, a big movie that like everyone saw it and was just like, oh my gosh, like you see that like giant ball rolling after Indy, you're like, what is happening right now? Or yeah, you just going through like the truck sequence in the desert and everything. And like now everything is like, oh, that's too expensive to do it. We'll just do it on a computer. And computer is great, but it takes so much more time for the artist to really refine the process, and you just don't have as much time anymore. So it's like, all right, we have to get it done. And then, they get subcontracted out to like, all right, this team's just going to do the fire effects. This team's doing the water effects. This team's doing like the cable replacements. This team's doing like all the cape movements and all that stuff. And so it just becomes, and then I don't know if like the brain can actively tell, but you can start to see like, this doesn't feel truthful. It doesn't feel real as much anymore. There's like a little bit more of a barrier between.
There's no soul anymore.
Yeah.
No soul.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can point to like one exact thing in it that doesn't feel there, but it's just so many, so many problems that all kind of like come together at once that you're just like, I'm not sure which one is the pinpoint, but there's a lot of stuff that comes together.
Is there a like new revolution on the horizon, or are we just like doomed to, like to like Moneyball, like it's just like the money's going to take over and you can't stop it. And now, as sports is ran by money, like sadly, like it's that's why a lot of people revert, to college ball. It is also being taken over by money slowly
Money as well. Yeah.
And so, is there going to be a revolution in film and TV? Like, or is Gen Z going to like break the seal on this thing and like they're going to start recording everything with their phones and just be like, forget the industry, and like we're going to do our own thing. And then all of a sudden these things become popular and like nobody wants to watch, Netflix. Nobody wants to watch the movie theaters. It's like now the movie theaters are going to the kids, the Gen Z, saying, dude, we want to buy your film for 20 million, and they put it in the theaters and things blows our Netflix, like what's the trajectory? Where do you see it going?
I do think there's definitely some contraction going on. Like before, I think there were over like 730 or shows that they were doing a year.
730?
730 different shows.
For Netflix?
That was just like all streaming, like TV shows network. Like there's like 722, 730 shows they were doing a year, and they called these past several years like the golden age of television because like everyone was trying to get as much content out as possible. Mm-hmm. And then as like seeing like the profitability, all that stuff is we're spending this amount, but we're only bringing in this much. But we can offset that because we just need to bring subscribers. Now that like everything's kind of balanced out, like all right, we can't make that many shows. Like no one is really watching that much content. So I think the contraction is going to start coming in. That people are just going to start focusing in on like what's something that's like a little bit new, what's something that's different. So I do feel like there's some resurgence in that part of just like we're not going to be making quantity. It's all going to be a little bit more about quality. And then, the big thing is, Gen Z and all these new generations are like, they don't really watch Netflix. They don't watch a lot of streaming. Like their big thing is like YouTube. Like they like watching these kind of short content creators discussing things, talking about things. I mean, you see huge explosion of podcasts of just like people having conversations and all that stuff. And I don't know if that's part of like, people wanting something more like truthful and real, because it's just, people sitting across from each other just talking, and there's not like that air of like, all right, this was all written by someone, this was all like putting hair and makeup, this was all camera lenses, this is all these things, and it goes through like, all these executives are giving notes that it feels, you start feeling the artificiality of it at each step.
Yeah.
And so this is
that was the appeal to reality TV, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, it's real, and it's like you find out it's all written, you're like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, real life usually isn't as interesting every single week. It's not possible.
Right. You're like, even reality TV is scripted? There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. This is real, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it'd be very interesting to see where we go with this new generation, because especially seeing like my brother's, because he's like 12 and a half years younger and he's still in college. So seeing him, like getting him like on TV shows and stuff, like I've had to like give him like a couple that he's watched. He's like, oh my gosh, these are great. But he just doesn't watch a lot of content. Like he'll watch YouTube, and then like video games is like the largest driver of like entertainment. Like,
wow.
Yeah, video games, they make way more money than like movies, music, and TV combined in a year. Like video games blow them out of the water for the revenue.
Wow.
Yeah. I
mean, pornography though is bigger than that though, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's just like
it's really crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that eclipse probably everything combined, huh?
Yeah, I can't imagine. Especially because it's like, I don't know the exact monetization of porn and all everything, but I mean, because it's free and anyone could just sign up, and then I don't know how they like make all the money off of it, but it's literally, I mean,
probably advertisements meets subscription meets, who knows what.
Everything. Yeah. But I was like, even this, like with Twitter too, like you don't have to have like an age restriction. Like anyone that can go on there can just start looking, and you can find whatever you want on there. And you're just like, like you can't do that out on the street. Like you just can't be like walking around with pornography, but you can do it like on Twitter or like anyone with an internet connection. Like it seems like, we haven't quite figured out the laws to catch up with. Like, you really got to make sure that like there's age restrictions on all these things.
Any word to any of that stuff, Rick? Because like you understand how a person is impacted through the eyes, through the ears, through the mind, through the heart, especially through this visual interaction.
Oh yeah.
And the next generation is being consumed. I mean, our generation is consumed by it.
Oh yeah.
We're the first generation to have a screen in our hand in which, we did, people. I think our parents would like joke about it, but it was like, if you wanted to go find some porn or something, like you had to go to the liquor store, go to
there's human interaction, the awkwardness,
the dirty magazine up on the shelf. Can I get that one, please? He like puts it in a brown paper bag, slides it across the counter. And you're just like, and you got to go hide it under your bed, so nobody finds it. But it's like now it's like our generation, it's in our hand. Like we have now the next generation. I mean, it's And sadly, social media is like shutting down, human interactions, right?
Oh yeah.
Unless you're in a room with people having to talk, like you're not really talking to anybody, and so it's really sad because they're being glued to the screen, and now all of their romance, all of their everything is coming through the screen. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, you being on the inside, the nuts and bolts of this stuff, you understand how it impacts the eyes, how it impacts the heart. What is happening, and any word, to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, there is something very powerful visually when you get to see something. Like, I still remember seeing like Saving Private Ryan for the very first time, and you see like that opening sequence, and I mean, that's probably not even like half of
D-Day.
what actually D-Day invasion was like. But just from like reading the history books and seeing all that stuff, like, oh yeah, they took the beach and they did that was like the huge turning point for the war in Europe, and then you actually see like what human beings had to go through for just like all that happened in like an hour, and then you're just like can't imagine like living there in the moment and the way that like they film it and the entire sequence. So you're just going through there, and like by the end of it, it feels like you can't breathe. Like you just go through that entire stress and trauma with them. Then you get to the end, and that's just like a part of your day, and then you just go into the next part, and then you're just like living this moment. Or when you see like Passion of the Christ, like you read it in the Gospels, these moments, and you kind of get, okay, yeah, he was marred and crucified and all this stuff, and you actually see like the visual impact of it. Like you can't unsee it. Like it's just stuck with you forever.
Right.
So no, I mean, like the power of visual storytelling is immensely popular.
Yeah.
And that's why you see like so much of like this distortion now in social media, and like people growing up with it, that, the filters and everything that people do to like change their face and how they look. And they only put these like best presentations of themselves out there, and everything, that there is this complete ability for us to be more connected than anywhere in human history. Like anyone in the world you can now talk to, like pretty much, that has an internet connection, but yet we have like zero connection to anyone else really in the world. It's an odd time to see this kind of weird technology, but yet we're losing a lot of the humanity in that we just see just the good moments of people's lives and just the best parts, and everyone is like, become like their own publicist. Like you're only seeing like these great parts of like, look at me, I'm here in Dubai, I have this yacht, I'm here with this, Lambo, I'm here with all these things, but the regular day-to-day life is not like that at all. Or what it took you to like work as a man to get all the way up to that point where you could like have this really cool picture with this Lamborghini that you didn't see like the 3, years of working like 20-hour days, like to build this business, to do all that kind of stuff. And I mean, that's like where the life is found, is like the day-to-day stuff. Like, sure, it's really cool to have that Lamborghini that you worked really hard for and you got and you took that picture and that's like awesome. But what does tomorrow look like? Like you're going still to the grind and going back to that and doing all that stuff. So yeah, trying to everyone has become like that salesman almost, trying to sell this life in this world and this idea of, things make you happy.
You, if you had kids, you don't have kids yet.
No, I do not.
We're praying you have kids.
Yeah, hopefully.
Shout out Rich Single, all you single ladies out there. Come on, we got a bachelor here. He is ready. No, I don't know if he is, but I'm just, I'll get that. I'm just shout out for Rick. Shout out for all you ladies out there.
I received that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis, man. That stash and that beer. I love that. Anyways, shout out if any lady. No, but don't have kids yet, but hopefully will in the future. And when you process all of when you process TV, when you process film, like what will you allow access to your kids? What will you shield them from? How you want them to process some, you don't want them to process others. You know the power of film, you know the power of TV, you know the power of screens.
No, I don't know. That is something that I kind of think about and everything, because like there's something like, my parents didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Like it was all like, physical things. And so now, I know, I think like it really has to become more about like family and learning about from family. Like I love still like the Jewish ideas of like having this Shabbat where like, there's no technology. We're not going to do this. We're going to sit here as a family and we're going to spend dinner together. We're going to talk at the table and we're going to be part of these things, because it's like I can't remember, there's like some study or something that showed that like parents only interact with their kids for like less than like, I think it was like less than an hour, less than 45 minutes a day on average, just between like school and work and friends. So it's like really everyone outside of you is raising your child, like teachers, their friends, and like they're having more influence in all these things. And so I think it has to be more of like a conscious effort of, what actually matters in the world. Does it matter that, I give my kids, a nice, place to live and, food and all that stuff? Yes. But what's more important is that they have, a human father that loves them, that cares about them, that can point them to like, biblical truths and like actual, heavenly father that will love them for all of eternity and forever. And like imparting those things of, actual human connection that, it's a miracle that like the Lord brought me and then, your mom together, and that like we stay together, and that, we love you, and out of you comes like this miracle, and that it just goes from like generation to generation. Somewhere, you'll meet someone and they'll have someone, and then you pass on, and, all these like human like legacy things. It's really amazing. Look back like all through human history, there's only like so many people that are like remembered out of like the billions, trillions of people that have ever existed. Like in a history book, you can fill it up with, maybe a couple hundred that are actually remembered. Right. But the actual impact of legacy that you have on like having like a child, and then they pass on your name, and then they remembered, oh yeah, remember grandpa taught me this, and then, great grandpa taught me that. And then it becomes that legacy of like you actually instilling values and like, love to children that goes from generation to generation next. I mean, that is the actual legacy that anyone could want to live or leave, because like everything else that you create, it all fades after a while. Like the pyramids, the hieroglyphs, all these things that you have, like people don't remember like the actual things, but the actual generations of people that go back to it is like, that's the actual things that matter in life.
Yeah, there's nothing like a real interaction with your kids, a real interaction.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were just watching the other night, we were watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh, yeah. It's a great movie.
It was all, Eden's fired up over this one,
Yeah.
We showed it to her one time. We've been slowly introducing her to like a few of these, these films that.
And that's the trick of, trying to share. How much do you share with them and how much do they don't? And
anyways, we were watching it, and even as I was sitting there, I was thinking, again, this is I was telling Katie this, I'm like, look at this transition. So what I love about this experience that's happening right now is that though any of us could go and grab a screen and be transported into another place in our minds right now. If any of us pick up the phone, or if the kids had phones,
Oh yeah.
or tablet or whatever, as soon as they pick up, they transport into another place, and now they're no longer watching the film together with our family, right?
Yeah.
So now it's no longer a family like show together, because even if I pick up the phone and I start scrolling social media or whatever, my brain transports to another world, and I'm in that world of social media. Now I'm no longer watching the film with my family, laughing with my kids, enjoying, Eden, what'd you think about that part? And Shep, what'd you think about that part? Like, no longer am I engaged, right? But I said, but notice we are even as a family watching a screen, transporting to another place together, right? So I said, what was the escape prior to television? And I said, it's books.
Yeah.
Right? The book is the escape.
Yeah.
But then what before books? And because everyone didn't necessarily have 30 books in their home, rewind even probably 200 or 300 years ago, maybe they had one book.
Yeah.
But now everyone is forced to interact in real time with each other and be together in real time all the time.
Yeah.
And you could escape. You could go sit down and read a book and escape to another place by yourself. You want to do that on an afternoon.
Yeah.
But 90% of the time, or 95% of the time, you are together with your family all day, every day, or with the people you know, and you're just talking, hanging out, interacting just like this every day. Now we have the ability to transport ourselves to other worlds, and we're already doing it. We're already in the metaverse, right? I mean, we can enter in anytime through our phone that we want to, but soon enough, we may not be able to tell the difference between
what's the blurred reality between
we are in the matrix, right? It's like we are in the meta. You know, we're in the verse. You know, whatever it is, but But what it caused me to do in that moment was realize the importance again of FaceTime with my kids. And I'm not talking about through the screen. I'm talking about
actual human-to-human interaction. And
and you can see the lights turn on when there is that human interaction. They want that so deeply. I think that's what you're trying to point out, Rick, with Shabbat and your family, like spending time together and talking and growing. You know, these kind of things. And not that we can't enjoy film together. It's not that we can't enjoy these things together. We can, but trying to build out space so that they have real human interaction.
Yeah, the family, the community. I mean, there's so many reasons, like even like coming from like, you know, Mexican family and cultures, like, you know, the huge, like there's always the joke, like Mexican families never go anywhere by themselves. Like, and it's so true. If my grandma goes, like my aunts are going, my cousins are going, everyone's going in the cars together. We're all going shopping. Even if only one person needs to go shopping, everyone's going shopping.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it is like these family and these communities that you see like in all these cultures and everything, like the family is like so important to everything. Cause that is like literally the linchpin of like every society, of every structure is always, you know, family. And to keep that intact and going through that. And I mean, that's like kind of the blessing that I have like with my parents of like, you know, going together. It was just me and my mom and dad for so much. It was just like the three of us, you know, wherever we went in the world, it was three of us. We get plugged into a church, but it was always like me, mom, and dad everywhere. And then like seeing my brother come in, and then since he's so much younger than me, I was always like kind of third parent. So you get to kind of experience the world like through his eyes and through how he sees things. And then you get to see that kind of like curiosity and joy of like a child just experiencing. And like, he didn't know any other way because he was just kind of grew up in like Arizona. So everything was hot. And so he was always just running around like hot and sweaty all the time. And we're all just like, oh, just get in the AC, like enjoy it. But he's like a little kid that wanted to just go and play. And you see like that kind of joy and wonder that like you get to experience things. And I remember watching like Jurassic Park with him for like the first time when he was growing up, and like seeing the excitement and joy on his face is like even more exciting than like I've seen the movie like 500 times, and seeing it through his eyes, it's like so much more, you know, fun and interesting that to kind of like go through all those emotions together.
Shep's a dinosaur guy. When's a good age to show him Jurassic Park? What do you think?
I don't know. Like, there's definitely some scary moments, and then it is a longer film, so I'd probably wait a little bit older. Like, I was probably like 7 or so when I thought, so I'd probably like wait till like closer to 10. You kind of, because I mean, it is a longer film.
Yeah,
it's like the thing is like attention span of like little kids
for sure
is like really tough. I remember seeing like. Back from my family, they have like 2 little nieces that my mom kind of watches at their church, and like going to take them to go see like Sing or Sing 2 and all that stuff. Like the musical numbers, they're fine and they're happy, they're dancing, and everything else in between, they get a little antsy. They want to sit on your lap, they want to sit on someone else's lap, they kind of bounce around. So yeah, time is a big thing with kids.
No, for sure. Yeah, we can't. I mean, Eden's doing it for sure, but Shep's not there yet. Yeah, he's going to be up and running around doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Us, obviously, none yet, but. Any major influences, directors that stick out to you, and or writers, producers? I don't know, whatever category. Some of these do all of the above. Like any that stick out to you that really just had a huge impact on you, or you just love their style of work.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys who came out of the 70s like really transformed a lot of cinema and language and everything. Like you see like Spielberg who comes out of there, and then because so many Scorsese, and then you have like Francis Ford Coppola and Lucas and all these kind of big people that kind of really transformed the industry that came out of like, the 60s of like film had kind of gotten a little stale and stagnant, and the business was kind of dying, and then no one was really sure like what was the process, and so you had all these people kind of coming out of film school, and this is like the first time like film school was like really kind of becoming a thing. So they had like this history and this knowledge, but also just wanted to like kind of go and experiment and all these different things. And so you had like these weird kind of like, who sets like actual like fantasy like King Arthur's type story in like a space setting for Star Wars, like that's a weird like wizards in space, like what is this kind of thing? And then you watch it and it's like, oh, this works. Like, and then you see, Raiders of the Lost Ark is this crazy, Nazis, and we're archaeologists, and he's just going after, the Ark of the Covenant and all these things. And then you just go through like, the mobster movies with Coppola telling like this giant, like 3-hour long epic film that like, even holds up to this day. And so you see a lot of these influences, and then you go like, as they can still continue to make all these films now, and how they still kind of bring a lot of those themes. I don't know, that's like a lot of the, the best directors that kind of come out of that very limiting atmosphere that you have, that we don't have huge budgets, so how do we tell these stories that are still like super impactful, but with the restraints now kind of guiding us to make these decisions. And then for writers, like I always love like dialogue is like always my favorite type of thing, because I feel like that's where like comes, you see a lot of the characters and their perspective, and then how like people can turn a phrase and you just kind of get lost in the dialogue of it, that it becomes like its own thing. So like Aaron Sorkin, who did like West Wing and all these kind of things, like the way that he's able to like use dialogue, that it just feels like music so much of the time. You're just like watching, it's like these kind of pithy back and forth. Like kind of, you get to see the humor, you get to see the heart, you get to see the things, and you see like the brokenness, and then also like, sometimes the fun and humor to balance it out. That's like amazing just to see it, because you're just like, my brain just couldn't think that way. It's like, it's just amazing to see. And that's just like, just something that they just do naturally.
You are also a poster collector.
Yeah, I love my movie posters and art and all that kind of stuff. That's like my big inspiration.
What are the epic shots? Like the ones you're just like, these are the best.
Yeah. Let's see. Probably one of my favorite ones is they did for The Dark Knight Rises, is that it's like a big it's 24 by 36 movie poster, but it's like sideways, so it's like the landscape version.
Yeah.
And it's really it's all white, and then you see like some of the city of like Gotham in kind of like the background of there, and then you see like these giant this Batman logo that's kind of like coming silhouette that's kind of coming up above the town, but it's all like individual little bats that kind of make up the entire picture of it. So you kind of see like this presence over the city, and is stuff like that. That's kind of like, it gives you like a sense of the movie, but it doesn't have to be like, a movie poster of it. It just kind of fills you with that. You kind of appreciate it. So whenever I walk by, it's always like an interesting, something that just like affects you. Like, I guess like all kind of like art or movies and that kind of stuff does. But yeah. And then one of the newer ones I just got that I have to like find room for, because I literally, every wall that I have in my place is like literally filled with like movie posters that they make. And then I just got a new one for like Into the Spider-Verse, was the previous Spider-Man animated film that they made, which is like one of my favorite movies that came out a couple years ago. And it's really cool the way they do it, because like there's, in the movie, there's actually like all these different like universes that have like different Spider-Man and all these type of, different spider superheroes that are all affected differently. So you have like, traditional Spider-Man, then you have like Miles Morales Spider-Man, and there's like Spider-Gwen and Spider-Pig and Noir Spider-Man and all these ones that kind of come together. And so it's like kind of this big like web tapestry that kind of gives it all of it, the poster its shape, but then everyone else is kind of like connected through this web to each other and how they all kind of interact and everything in the movie. So it's like one of the, I don't know, I have no ability to draw, and so that's like something I can't do anything with my hands, but seeing like other artists that can just like take a piece of paper and like draw it, and then you just see it and just like, this is like impressive. Like, I get the feeling, I get the emotion, I get all this excitement and joy from it, and it's literally just someone that's just like drew it up by their hand. And it's like, yeah, it's an amazing gift to have. And so I see it, and I kind of have like a long hallway to the entrance to my apartment. So I have like some on each side, but yeah, I have like a lot of Marvel stuff. I'll have some DC stuff. I have like actual like classic movie posters that they do. And they have like a lot of artists that's like Mondo Gallery is like really big, or Bottleneck Gallery and stuff. And they hire artists to make licensed prints, and they're all like limited run and stuff. And so they just like, however the artist, feels is like the moment of the movie or something like that. Like they did one for like the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. And this British artist put together a whole piece, and it's like the centerpiece is like Darth Vader, and then you see like Hoth in kind of like the foreground, and you see like some of the asteroid field with like Han and Leia and the Millennium Falcon, and then you see like Luke, and so it's just really cool to see like how the artist just like imagines the entire movie in like a single image.
In one piece.
Yeah, 100%.
No, it's sweet.
Yeah.
You are a writer, and when you look at you're a story writer, and when you look at the story of your life, where do you think, as you reflect on what God has put in you and what He's doing in you, where He has you now, like where do you see the story going? I know you have great aspirations, other things you want to do and build, and
definitely.
what do your gifts, talents, and abilities? How do you see God using that to bring Him glory, through your craft?
Yeah, I mean, I always want to keep, serving and loving and opening doors and stuff like that. But I don't know, there's always like that, the fire in your bones, as Jeremiah said. Like I always have these stories in me that I want to tell. And as soon as I I'm writing them down and finishing them, and then I just like, oh, there's another story I want to tell. I kind of want to write about this now. I want to write about this. So it's always like trying to like, I don't have enough time in a day to like get them all out. Like I have like notebooks and all these ideas and everything. But definitely as I want to go forward and, be able to like produce some of my own works and all that stuff. So I have like my own production company that can kind of produce stuff, or there's other stories that I know other people that I was like, some of my good friends, like, I love your storytelling. Like I can't write like that. I can't do it, but like, I want to produce that to help, bring your vision and your stuff to work. So how can we do that and everything? So it's really kind of enabling people and building it up, because it is so much like a collaboration industry that like you can't do it on your own. No matter how, much time or money or resources you have, it's just impossible like to do it on your own. And it's just not as fun. Like there's so much more, like you get this interaction of, several people working together, and you're bouncing off ideas, and you're trying to figure out, oh, maybe it goes like this, like that. And someone like says like some goofy joke or some little anecdote about their life or story. And then that sparks someone else to like kind of get the idea of like, oh, what about this? And then you're like, oh my gosh, I could never have thought of that. And you kind of just builds off of that. And so there is, so much more perspective and more like diversity of thought and stuff that you bring into it, that you're just like, I never could see the world the way you do, but it 100% works for the way that like for the story that we're telling.
Yes. Any young people who are probably listening have been wondering, like, how did this guy do this? Where do I even start? They want to break into the industry. Maybe they want to be a writer. They want to come in from some angle. Where would you encourage them to start?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question now. Like so much of it is so different. It depends on like if people really want to get into like different aspects of it. Like definitely writer's room is always like really tough to get around, because it's always like a sought after position, but it's like trying to get to know writers. Like I've known a lot of people that have come up through like production, have gotten to know writers, or if you're in like the editing process, because editors are always interacting whenever the writers come in and all that stuff. So I've known people who have come in through that way. Now people, if you create a lot of like shorts or get into like any like kind of even small like competitions and all that stuff, it's a good way to get noticed and all that stuff. If you go through like more traditional like agents and managers that get you noticed, and they kind of become your marketing arm to go out all that stuff. So there isn't like one way, there's like a million ways. So it's hard to do it, but it's definitely like, if you're really a storyteller and want to do it, like you have to have that passion and drive. Because like even like I, who absolutely like, love storytelling, there are so many times when you just get hit by like hammers of like no, and you're just like, am I just wasting my time here? Like, is this really what you want me, Lord? What am I supposed to learn from this? And then you just keep going, and then you look back on it, and it's like, okay, that's what I was supposed to learn from that. But yeah, you definitely have to have that drive and passion that just comes from the actual joy of it. Like you can't wanting to, I'll be able to make a lot of money off this, or I'll be able to do that, because like all of that is never gonna, fulfill you in the moments when you're just like, on my deadline. How do I get this? Like, this is where everyone's going to figure out, like, I'm a fraud, I'm a failure, I can't write. Because that's like the process that every writer goes through before they have to turn in their draft for the first time. It's like, this is it. This is the one where they figured out I can't write. This is where I'm going to have to go back to Montana and be a coal miner, and this is it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, like you said in your story, how you were the guy guarding the stairs, and then that developed or led to another relationship, led to another relationship. So it's like, it seems, being open to the small things. And I think a lot of times, especially now, you talk about with social media, like people see the best, the end result. The guy
the
with
microwave generation. Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, it seems like people need to have the perspective. Like, there's steps to this. You don't just start off on the top. And it seems like you remain humble even now, that you found a certain level of success. So it seems like it would be reasonable for people to have that perspective. Like, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And like you said, if you're passionate about it, you probably need to maintain that passion even through the dark seasons or the slow seasons.
No, definitely. I mean, there's always like, I always try to be like content with everything I have, but like never kind of satisfied. Like, I always want like a little bit more. How can I like, keep pushing and keep growing and keep, furthering my skill and all that stuff? Because there's so much more that's like you can constantly learn and grow, and it's the process. And I don't know, definitely like they always say that, write what you know, which is always like a weird kind of thing as you grow up. But it definitely feels like writing becomes more therapy. Like for me now that I like realize it, it's like you write through it and you're like, oh, I'm going through that. That's why I'm like, this is why it's so interesting to me right now. This character is like, I really want to put him in this position, do all that kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, that's what I'm going through.
Wow.
So you kind of get to feel that, and you get to self-reflect and analyze. And you're like, oh yeah, I may not know what, I may not know what it feels like to have like this alien invasion, but I know what it feels like to, go through this emotion, to, have like losing, a grandparent, or losing this, friend that I've really loved, or that betrayal, or what does that feel like while, that friend who betrayed me is actually, an alien that's come to, take over the world. Like, how do I find forgiveness in that? How do I, go through that journey? So it's like these heightened moments that are these real, going through like real human emotions at the same time.
What you've been in the industry for 10 years.
Yeah, a little over 10 years now. I can't believe it.
What, when you reflect on it, is there any common denominator? What do you think is I'd love to ask this question, kind of the secret, to the industry, to being successful in this industry? What, is there anything that you can point to that, you see that someone needs to pursue, or is kind of the secret sauce to getting into the entertainment, or maybe what it's been for you? The
biggest thing for me is like just always be honest. That's like the biggest thing. Like, so many people are always, trying to like do whatever it takes to like get ahead or do any of that kind of stuff. And, lie, cheat, steal, doesn't matter what you got to do. But it's really just like being honest, because like so much of this is just like the daily grind of like going through the process, and then, trying to sell projects, refine process, doing all that kind of stuff, that you really want to find like people that you can actually trust to work with. And then like they bring you on to like show after show after show after show. Cause like, if I give you this job, like I know it's going to get done, and I know it's going to get done well, and I don't have to worry about that. So I can focus on something else.
Yes.
So that's always like my biggest thing, is like, I always want to go in there and like, I'm always gonna be like the hardest worker in the room. Like, I'm always going like giving you 100%, like anything you need. Like, I'm going, with you to the end of the line kind of thing. And then also like, building up that trust of like, if I say I'm going to do it, I'll do it. Like, I'll get it done. It'll be done well. There's not gonna be any problems. And so there's so many people in here that you deal with, that you just like, I don't want to have to micromanage you, but I know I'm going to have to like check in every step of the way. Cause if I give it to you, like, I know it's not going to get done. And so it's like really trying to find good people that you can trust. Cause it's very hard out here to find that, which I'm sure it happens in like every walks of life, between like, leading the church or leading businesses and all that stuff. Like, I mean, just finding good people that you can trust is hard, I feel like, in any field.
You stepped into legacy and you chose to start serving immediately.
Yeah.
You're setting up chairs. You're doing all kinds of stuff, Rick. And people don't know this guy. Especially in this world, of LA that we live in. Sometimes, if you have a little bit of success, or you climb a couple ladders, you get some fame, or you get some money, or you get some power, whatever it may be. A lot of times, people grow to be above, certain things.
Yeah,
and
the trap.
The trap, yes. And for some reason, you walk in and almost do the reverse opposite, to which we could never conclude that Rick had any type of great success prior to stepping in. But you just came in and served, and you came in and loved the church, and you've loved the brother as well. What is that? Where is that? Where'd that come from? What is that?
I think it's a lot of going back from like a lot of my parents and stuff and doing that as well, like them, like just, that's what we just did. You go to a church, like you're getting involved, you're going to start serving, you're going to start helping out, you're going to start doing stuff. And I don't know, like I find it just, it's a joy to do it. Like, the Lord gives me all these things. The Lord, he gave me like the Energizer Bunny, like I can just go and go, go, go. So yeah, I can fold up some chairs. I can, put some stuff away. I can do all that kind of stuff. And it's fun, as you chit chatting and talking with the guys while you're doing it or going through that or, praying with someone that's having a hard time and just, I feel like guys are always great of, we're never going to like sit down across from each other and be like, oh my gosh, how are you doing? Tell me what it felt like. It's like, all right, so, we're doing this physical stuff, going through that. And it's like, so how you doing? I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Come back 5 minutes later. So anything happened this week? Like, yeah. And then come back another 5 minutes later and it's like, oh yeah, so was it fun and everything? Like, no, it was really rough. And so as you're doing stuff, you kind of slowly start, sharing about things that are going on and all that kind of stuff, and you kind of get to actually get to the heart of stuff that you guys are going through and doing that kind of thing. So, which I feel is like really, really lacking, and especially with like the social distancing and the social media age, that we don't have a lot of connection, and there's not a lot of places where guys can just go and be guys anymore about doing these kind of stuff and just talking about the same problems that like everyone has that's a guy, and it's kind of been amazing. It's kind of been a nice benefit, even though like we've had like this kind of like long strike and everything over the summer and everything. Is really I've been able to kind of go out and do it all lunches and breakfasts and coffees and stuff with a lot of the guys and see they're all going, we're all guys going through the same thing. And so it's kind of funny, share life and do all that stuff that you forget about that a lot because you're just so much like, this is what I do every single day. I'm doing this, and this, and then it becomes the next day and I do this, and then you stop and you start seeing everyone else and you're like, oh yeah, we're all kind of going through this thing called life together and experiencing the same problems.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't matter how far technology advances and how much AI interacts and intervenes and how much social media takes over. I think that we're always going to want the human interaction, the human touch, the whatever that intuition is. It's like a soul looks at another soul and can always identify another soul. Yeah, and can identify, even if fooled for a while, will identify the fake long term, the deep fake, long term, and the fellowship of the brothers has been such a blessing. Here the guys coming in here at the barn Wednesday nights, fill this place with food and with fellowship and have a blast. Really for 30, 45 minutes, just chatting it up, goofing off, laughing, checking in. Making sure everybody's okay, and that's been one of the joy, of what you do and what's been happening with the guys in the Bible study here at the church. And so, I don't know, I'm just blessed and encouraged by it. It's like obviously all the work from behind the scenes on the screen, all of that going on in entertainment, but then stepping outside of that world and just coming in here and just being one of the guys is it's a blessing, Rick, that you do that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's I always just try to keep that mindset all the time. Is the first shall become last. Actually, just humble yourself. Like it's not always I'm just I'm a steward. It's all been given to me. I don't own any of it. It's not mine. I just give it all back to God. But I'm thankful He gave me all this fun because I have like the most fun I've ever had, like doing all this stuff and working and enjoying everything. But it's none of it's mine. So I just get to play with the toys and give it all back to Him at the end of the day.
This has been an awesome conversation, Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I feel like we could go for 7 more hours. Fast.
We can. You've been pouring lots of great information and wisdom. And fun stories. Where can people find you online if they want to look up Rick Lopez or want to connect industry stuff?
Yeah, definitely. It's Rick_Lopez Jr. on Instagram and then Twitter. But I think those are my only social media stuff. I had to like get them off my phone because like the biggest thing about writing is procrastinating. Yes. So yeah, if you're always like trying to like do that, so I had to like get all this stuff off my phone. But I do check it like once a day. I have to log into my web browser to do it and get in, get out. But
right, or you could always just show up at Legacy on Sunday morning. You'll find Rick. He'll be there.
Sunday morning, Wednesday nights. Yeah, I was like, I'll be there.
Rick, you're a joy, brother. Thanks for shining the light into this place. Thanks for being so refreshing, man. Your joy and your peace and I don't know, your love for God, your love for your craft just beams through. It impacts the brothers. We're thankful for you. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate it. I was like, it's one thing I love at Legacy is you guys have built like a really great church, really great family, really great community. And we really have like a great group of guys there that are really hungry, thirsty after, trying to live life and figure all that out together. So yeah, thank you guys.
You're welcome, brother. Come back on anytime.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm right around the corner. So let's do it.
Yes.